Let us pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. It is with deep sorrow that Her Majesty the Queen has announced the death of her beloved husband, His Royal Highness, the Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. His Royal Highness passed away at Windsor Castle on Thursday, April 9. Please join with us as we observe 1 minute's silence. Rest eternal grant unto him, O Lord, and let light perpetual shine upon him. May his soul and the souls of all the departed through the mercy of God rest in peace. Amen. Let us pray. O merciful God, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who is the resurrection and the life, in whomsoever believeth shall live though he die, and whosoever liveth and believeth in him shall not die eternally, who also hath taught us by his holy apostle St. Paul, not to be sorry as those without hope, for them that sleep in him. We meekly beseech thee, O Father, to raise us from the death of sin unto the life of righteousness, that when we shall depart this life, we may rest in him as our hope is in thy servant Prince Philip doth, and that at the general resurrection in the last day we may be found acceptable in thy sight, and receive that blessing which thy well-beloved Son shall then pronounce to all that love and fear thee, saying, Come, ye blessed children of my Father, receive the kingdom prepared for you from the beginning of the world. Grant this, we beseech thee, O merciful Father, through Jesus Christ, our mediator and Redeemer. Amen. We commend, O Lord, to thy fatherly goodness Elizabeth, our Queen, and all the members of the royal family. Send to them thy Holy Spirit to comfort, help, and strengthen them, and give them a sure and steadfast trust in thee, through Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. It is fitting that we pray for our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent. God of healing and mercy, we come before you with our hearts filled with grief as we see the devastation caused by the eruption of Lasso in St. Vincent. We pray that your presence would be felt by those who are grieving, who are injured, who have lost their homes and livelihoods, who have been displaced by this natural disaster. We pray for wisdom and for safety for those who are responding to the people in need and the many challenges left in the wake of the eruption. We pray for the church, that through your Holy Spirit, we may be a generous witness of our time, talent, and treasure to your compassion and care for all who suffer. O God, you are our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in time of trouble. For this we give you thanks and ask that you hear our prayers for our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Let us bow before Almighty God, offering prayers for the 7th sitting of the 3rd session of the 4th House of Assembly. Grant us prudence, O God, to determine and direct our conduct, that we may be empowered with practical reason to discern the true good of this territory in every circumstance, and to choose the right means of achieving it. Grant us justice, O God, to habitually think what is right, to be upright in our conduct toward our neighbor, and that we may be constant and firm in respecting the rights of each as we establish human relationships which promote equity with regards to all persons and the common good. Grant us fortitude, O God, to be firm in difficulties and constant in the pursuit of good, that our resolve to resist temptation and overcome obstacles in moral life may be strengthened, and more particularly, that we may renounce and sacrifice our own needs, desires, aspirations, and even life in defense of the just cause of all the inhabitants of this territory. Grant us temperance, O God, by which our attraction of pleasures may be moderated, and our use created goods balanced, that we may have mastery over our instincts, and that our desires be kept within the limits of what is true, just, and honorable. Grant us faith to believe, O God, in all that Jesus has said and revealed to us, that we may freely commit our entire self to God and his purpose, thereby seeking to know and to do his will. Grant us hope, O God, that we may trust in the grace of the Holy Spirit and place our trust in the promises of Christ and not rely on our own strength and understanding, so that the aspiration to happiness which God has placed in the hearts of every human being may be achieved, that we may be protected from discouragement, sustained in times of abandonment, preserved from selfishness, and led to happiness. Grant us love, O God, that we may love him above all things for his own sake, our neighbor as ourselves, that we may all be bound together in perfect harmony, that our human intentions and aspirations be purified, and that we may experience true joy, peace, and mercy as we carry out our deliberations in this office of assembly in a disinterested, respectable, and generous way. We offer this praise to God's throne as we boldly say, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. May the good Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you his peace. Amen.
Thank you. Please be seated. The seventh sitting of the third session of the Fourth House of Assembly of the Virgin Islands has now convened. I call upon the clerk.
Item number 2, confirmation of minutes.
Honorable members, is it your wish that the minutes of the meeting held on Thursday, 4th March 2021 be confirmed as circulated? There being no dissenting voice, the minutes of Thursday, 4th March 2021 is hereby confirmed. I call upon the clerk.
The Speaker.
Thank you. Good morning again to all honorable members, staff of the House of Assembly, and all those who are listening to us on various media platforms. I want to take this time to congratulate the Virgin Islands Youth Parliament for such an informative discussion last month in their first debate, and we look forward to your final sitting of the year. We also recognize all the hard work of the Virgin Islands Youth Parliament Secretariat, Coordinator Dr. Arlene T. Penn, along with Ms. Brenda Letsom Tai, Mrs. Janice George Harris, Mrs. Heide Joyless Selwood, and Mrs. Phyllis Evans. As of today, we still have many bills not ascended to by the Governor. One such bill was sent since the 30th of June 2020. In my humble view, this is a threat to our democratic way of life, our House of Assembly as an independent institution, and to the role of the legislature in our Constitution. With that said, I call upon the clerk.
Item number 4, statements by ministers.
Is there any minister with a statement? I now recognize the Premier and Minister of Finance and member for the 1st District, the Honorable Andrew A. Foy, for his statement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'll be brief. With just a few statements, and I crave the indulgence of this honorable House. Mr. Speaker, the first statement that I will make to this honorable House is on the reopening of Rotong Jetty to international ferry passenger operations and marine sector update. Mr. Speaker, the Rotong Jetty to international ferry passengers is now fully operational, effective today, 15th April 2021. Mr. Speaker, on 10th November 2020, I came to the people of the Virgin Islands to speak on the Phase 3 reopening of the borders of the Virgin Islands. I advised at that time that the December 1st reopening at the Terence B. Letsom International Airport would allow us to gauge whether we could move ahead with the planned reopening for our seaports. I have not been shy to indicate the many difficult decisions that this government has had to make during the COVID-19 pandemic in order to keep persons safe while balancing lives and livelihood. But these decisions are always in keeping with our first priority, the health and safety of the people of the Virgin Islands. Mr. Speaker, on 23rd November, the British Virgin Islands Ports Authority engaged in its first interagency simulation exercise comprised of frontier government agencies, health authorities, and ferry operators as part of its preparation for the planned reopening of the Rotong Seaport. They conducted a live simulation exercise of both an arriving and departing international ferry. Participants physically walked through the multi-agency plans, discussed and identified effective approaches, measures, and response strategies to a multitude of scenarios. Referring to their experience, knowledge, and skills, as well as existing standard operating procedures and contingency plans, the agencies and ferry operators' focus was on the safe and smooth operation of arriving and departing guests through the ferry port. Mr. Speaker, based on the findings of that first simulation and other critical issues that were brought to the attention of this government, it was decided that we could not permit the reopening of the Rotong Jetty for that initial date of 8 December 2020. Since then, Mr. Speaker, a reopening date for January 2021 was suggested and quickly pushed back to March 2021. And finally, due to the many adjustments and physical improvements that were required for both international and domestic ferry operations to safely operate during this pandemic, a final reopening date of 15 April 2021 was announced. Mr. Speaker, sir, the new health and safety requirements that are necessary to keep our visitors and residents safe during this juncture have fostered unseen challenges, and we had to ensure that gaps were addressed before the BVI Ports Authority, terminal operators, government agencies, and partners all meet exemplary standards so that returning and departing visitors and residents can safely and efficiently utilize the Rotong jetty or any other port that will eventually reopen for international passenger movement. Mr. Speaker, I am so pleased to be able to once again announce that the BVI Ports Authority and partnering agencies that have been collaborating to reopen the international ferry transportation at the Rotong jetty was adhering to all established health protocols for COVID-19 is now operational effective today, 15th April. Mr. Speaker, contrary to the few naysayers, we have once again defied the odds, and we are now open to receive international passengers through one of our seaports. This is an economy on the move. This is your government working for you. The seaport option on BVI Gateway is now live, and persons wishing to transit via St. Thomas, United States Virgin Islands to our territory can begin their application process. Mr. Speaker, it is important to note that the testing and quarantine regulations remain the same as for persons who enter our territory by air. And Mr. Speaker, allow me to repeat that. It is important to note that the testing and quarantine regulations remain the same as for persons who enter our territory by air. Mr. Speaker, as a government, we recognize that the marine industry has been challenged since the onset of COVID-19. And in the form of a stimulus to the marine industry, I announced that this government has extended a reduction of fees for the 2020 to 2021 season for the licensing year, 1st November 2020 to 31st October 2021. And Mr. Speaker, I must give credit to our territorial large member, Honorable Neville Smith, Deputy Speaker, for the idea to have this initiative move forward in the best interest of all, especially our marine industry. Protocols to permit mega yachts were passed on 6 November 2020, and we have since welcomed back some of these yachts and their guests. Mr. Speaker, we are reviving and stimulating our marine industry. Mr. Speaker, we are strengthening our economy. On 11 January 2021, we began to host our warm lay-up calls with Royal Caribbean Group, and the initial time frame was extended due to the success of our efforts in offering this service while adhering to all established health protocols. Mr. Speaker, we welcome the return of cruise tourism in 2021. When this decision was made, it was not met with much favor because the Center for Disease Control, known as CDC, had not approved the restart of the cruise industry due to the relevant protocols not being agreed upon. However, since then, the CDC has recently announced approved health and safety protocols for the cruise industry, thereby allowing the industry to reconvene in a safe manner. Clearly, your government was once again proactive in its actions in this COVID-19 era. Cruise operators are expected to demonstrate adherence to embarkation testing, social distancing, masking, and 100% vaccination requirements for guests over 18 and all crew. Mr. Speaker, it is now our turn as an economy to prepare for the return of the cruise industry to the BVI shores. Get your services ready. Get your businesses ready. Get your staff ready. Get yourselves ready, because the BVI cruise sector is coming back. As a new revenue stream initiative to further strengthen and diversify our economy, your government is championing amendments to the Cruising and Home Port Permit Act to allow for the BVI to be a hub for home porting. This means that once approved, cruises can now originate in the BVI. And I repeat, Mr. Speaker, once this act is approved, cruises can now originate in the BVI. Mr. Speaker, to allow us to become competitive in this area, your government has significantly reduced the per passenger head tax for all cruises originating in the British Virgin Islands. This initiative will further strengthen our economy in the near future. This is innovation. This is your government working for you. Mr. Speaker, our aim is to also register cruise ships with BVI flags. We also have incentives for charter companies to base their operations in the BVI, as they too will benefit from the amendment to the Cruising and Home Port Act with reduced fees, which will now be significantly less than the fees paid by charter companies that are not registered in the BVI. Mr. Speaker, these are only some of the many initiatives your government is working on to further strengthen the economy of the Virgin Islands. Mr. Speaker, I thank you. Mr. Speaker, with your kind permission, I will now read the second statement that is prepared by me for this honorable House, and I crave the honorable members' indulgence and attention. And this one, Mr. Speaker, is entitled Virgin Islands Shipping Registry. Mr. Speaker, your government continues to significantly invest in the Virgin Islands Shipping Registry, which will become a major revenue earner for the Virgin Islands. The Virgin Islands Shipping Registry is poised to become a leading maritime authority in the global economy. Your government continues to be proactive in this respect through innovation, client-focused and comprehensive services. This is to say that the Virgin Islands Shipping Registry continues to plan and prepare itself to be a major contributor to the overall Virgin Islands economy. The Virgin Islands is a maritime, commercial, recreational mecca of the Western Hemisphere, and the Virgin Islands Shipping Registry, as the maritime administration of the Virgin Islands, is not only responsible for maintaining and maritime safety standards of the territory, but is also the catalyst that, through improvement initiatives and policy adjustments, can reignite the BVI maritime industries. Much of that work is now underway, and the opportunities to rebalance our commercial maritime economics alongside the requisite improvements for international compliance under the IMO Instruments Implementation Code, III Code, are being undertaken. Mr. Speaker, your government is working feverishly to transition the Virgin Islands Shipping Registry from a government department into a statutory agency. New vision and mission statements have been crafted. Marketing plans for the Virgin Islands Shipping Registry Global Business and Development Program are being developed. The identity of the organization is being remodeled to project the competence that exists within this red ensign flag administration. Mr. Speaker, this is innovation. This is your government working for you. Mr. Speaker, your government's overall objective is to further enhance the overall reputation of the Virgin Islands as a quality tourism destination and business jurisdiction by establishing a prominent global presence and footprint in the maritime sector. Mr. Speaker, additional legislation is forthcoming to improve the Virgin Islands Shipping Registry's local and global service product and offerings. Improved technologies are already in place, ready to be launched within the statutory structure once approved. Upcoming policy adjustments will provide significant and tangible advantages to commercial vessels that are BVI flagged in utilizing perhaps our most beneficial asset, the waters of the Virgin Islands. Many of these improvements do not blend into a public service environment, and not unlike most UK Category 1 flags, the success of this entity requires a commercial management and operational structure. Mr. Speaker, the people of the Virgin Islands can expect to see increased activity, new private sector revenue centers, improved capability, and additional job opportunities within the BVI's maritime economic subsector. Mr. Speaker, the government of the Virgin Islands, through the Virgin Islands Shipping Registry, has cited a goal of becoming a global maritime industry leader. We have done this before with our financial services industry, and we can also achieve this with our maritime products and spin-offs. Industry interest is already peaked, and I encourage all related industries to keep a watchful eye on the Virgin Islands Shipping Registry for cues to your area of potential economic expansion and business growth. Get to understand the business, become familiar with the supporting requirements from the private sector perspective, and join with your government as we support the Virgin Islands Shipping Registry in their efforts to bring vessels globally to the BVI flag, and along with that, bring shipping company registrations, ship management and operation offices, ship mortgages, and perhaps one day, even crewing agency for ships onto BVI shores. Mr. Speaker, the Virgin Islands Shipping Registry has established revenue targets growing to $15 million annually over the next 5 to 7 years. And this government firmly believes that this is achievable. But more important than this would be the overall economic benefit to this territory resulting from the various economic spin-offs once this sleeping giant or BVI maritime sector is revived. This is your government working for you. Mr. Speaker, I encourage the BVI private sector to each begin thinking about what opportunities prevail in other maritime flag jurisdictions. Prepare and align yourselves, and advise this government on any adjustments you deem necessary to make these developments not just a government or shipping registry success, but a BVI success. Mr. Speaker, I thank you. Mr. Speaker, I crave your indulgence as I update this Honorable House, Mr. Speaker, on the next statement. And this, Mr. Speaker, is dear to most of our hearts at this time and will be for quite a long time. And this one is on the eruption of the Lasso volcano in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Mr. Speaker, I take this opportunity to provide an update on the territory's collaborative humanitarian relief effort to support the government and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the wake of the ongoing eruption of the volcano. The Lasso volcano, which stands at about 3,864 feet on the northern side of the island of St. Vincent, has been dormant for the last 42 years. Last erupted in April 1979. It began seismic activity on 29 December 2020 with effusive eruption activity. On 8 April, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. the Honorable Ralph Gonzalez, issued a mandatory evacuation order for the approximately 20,000 residents living in the red zones on the north, east, and northwest of the island, and raised the alert level from orange to red due to the increase in seismic activity. On 9 April 2021, the volcanic eruption at Lasso escalated from an effusive to an explosive phase, firing huge plumes of ash and hot gas into the air. According to the University of the West Indies Seismic Research Center, the first column of ash was estimated to be 10 kilometers. Since then, there have been a series of explosions accompanied by ash venting episodes. On Monday, 12th April, one of the largest explosive events took place, leading to the collapse of the dome of the volcano and pyroclastic flows along the eastern and western coast of the island. A pyroclastic flow can be described as a fast-moving avalanche of gas and ash, which range in temperature from 392 to 1,292 degrees Fahrenheit. These flows rapidly charge down the mountain sides, destroying everything in its path. The continuing episodes of ash venting have led to the island being blanketed in ash. resulting in power outages and the contamination of the island's water sources. The coordinating unit of the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency has been supporting the St. Vincent and Grenadines National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, since 29 December 2021 in collaboration with 29 December in 2020 in collaboration with the UE Seismic Research Center to actively monitor the situation as it unfolds. On Monday morning, my government and I had the opportunity to meet with the heads of government from across the region as we received an update from the Executive Director of the Caribbean Emergency Management Agency, CEDEMA, and the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. the Honorable Ralph Gonzalez. We are advised that water remains the most pressing need at this time, as the country is only able to access 20% of their normal water supply. We were also advised that persons were reluctant to leave the island and be evacuated to other Caribbean islands, not being aware of what their circumstances would be on another island. And that is more than understandable. This situation is compounded by the ongoing pandemic of COVID-19, as many persons in St. Vincent and the Grenadines remain reluctant to take the vaccine, which was one of the measures put in place to manage the COVID-19 situation to allow persons to be safely evacuated to neighboring islands. There was a recognition that food packages would also need to be provided for the persons who are displaced. Not only the persons in shelters, but also persons who have been able to seek shelter with family and friends. In addition, persons have been advised to stay indoors as the country is under approximately 14 to 20 inches of ash, depending on the location. I recommitted the support and solidarity of the government and people of the Virgin Islands at this most difficult time, and government agencies are actively coordinating efforts with members of the business community and civil society organizations to take a coordinated territory-wide approach to providing support to the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The Ministry of Transportation and Works, in conjunction with the Water and Sewage Department, will be coordinating the dispatch of water trucks filled with water and water tanks filled with water on a barge scheduled to leave the territory next week. We are also looking into exploring the possibility of sending water in the holding tank of the barge, which will be transporting the supplies. The coordination of the logistics around the dispatch of a mobile water desalination plant is underway. We are coordinating efforts with the Ports Authority at Port Purcell and the Department of Disaster Management to ensure that the vessel can be packed and dispatched by next week. Collection of supplies on Tortola is taking place from 14th to 20th April and is also scheduled to take place on the sister islands. The vessel is scheduled to depart Port Purcell on Wednesday, 21st April for Virgin Gorda, where additional supplies will be collected. The vessel will set sail on the 24th for arrival in St. Vincent and the Grenadines on the 26th April 2021. The family of Rotary clubs, the BVI Red Cross, the Lions, the Adventist Development and Relief Agency, ADRA, the Office of the Honorary Council of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Association and various church organizations in the territory, and the Department of Disaster Management, DDM, are all collaborating to provide humanitarian relief and support to our friends and relatives in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The Rotary clubs and the Rotary family of clubs in the BVI will hold a telethon where the goal is to raise $50,000 in support of the relief effort beginning this evening at 7 p.m. Again, the Rotary family of clubs in the BVI will hold a telethon where the goal is to raise $50,000 in support of the relief effort beginning this evening at 7 p.m. Members of the BVI's entertainment fraternity, in collaboration with the Lions Club and the St. Vincent Association, are also holding a relief donation drive on Saturday, 17 April from 3 p.m. at Pancake Paradise. I want to take this opportunity to encourage persons to get involved and support the relief efforts, whether it is with a civic organization or church group or individually. Everyone is encouraged to make a contribution to the relief effort and share the BVI love with our Caribbean brothers and sisters in St. Vincent and the Grenadines at this most difficult time. Please note that sending personal packages is not encouraged and will not be helpful to the overall relief efforts on the ground. From our own experience with a national disaster, we know how important it is to receive help in the useful ways identified by the respective authorities. In light of this, I want to appeal to persons who wish to make cash donations. The logistical arrangements of deploying cash gifts are much less strenuous than physical contributions at this time. This mode of giving would also go a long way in supporting the local economy of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We are advised that the immediate needs are for water tanks, cots, drinking water, personal hygiene products, blankets or sleeping bags, respiratory masks, and food items. The stated needs are expected to change as time goes on, so persons are also asked to consider making cash donations. We are also asking persons to donate to SEDIMA and NEMO, the two agencies spearheading and coordinating the relief effort on the ground. Persons and businesses can contact the BVI Department of Disaster Management by calling 468-4200. Again, 468-4200 to get further details on how to give to the St. Vincent National Disaster Relief Fund. I want to take this opportunity to thank all the persons who are mobilizing support to assist this relief effort. We know that many of you are going through your own hardship at this time due to the impact of COVID-19 on our economy. So we are extremely grateful for your personal sacrifices as we join as a territory to extend our support to St. Vincent and the Grenadines and share BVI love. We will continue to monitor this situation as it develops, and the BVI is standing by to learn more details on how we can further support in the weeks and months ahead, as this is not likely to be a short-term situation. Little is much when God is in it, and we know that in these Virgin Islands. So please continue to pray strength for the government and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. People of the Virgin Islands, repaying kindness, showing kindness, and showing that we care has always been in our DNA as a people. After the destruction of Irma and Maria to the BVI, the government and people of St. Vincent was very, very helpful to us. Now it is time for us to lend our support in their time of urgent need. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the last and final statement, Mr. Speaker, that I would read to this Honorable House as we are here within these hollow walls, Mr. Speaker, is entitled Update on Tongan Country Planning Applications. Mr. Speaker, at this time, I wish to give a brief update on what has been happening at the Tongan Country Planning Department. In spite of the COVID-19 pandemic, 2020 was an extremely busy year for the BVI in the construction industry. As a lead agency responsible for regulating the construction industry, the Tongan Country Planning Department continues to be at the forefront in driving economic activity in this industry. This fact is supported by the high number of applications processed by the Tongan Country Planning Department. while an average year would see the department handling 330 planning applications, Tongan and Country Planning Department processed approximately 464 development applications for calendar year 2020. With 464 development applications approved, it means a financial booster shot into the economy, spreading into sectors. This means there is a market for goods, construction materials, transportation services, as well as many other spin-off areas of our economy. No doubt the workers will have the need for meals and the spending power to support our food vendors and other businesses. When they earn their salaries, their entire families will benefit. The family then is able to spend the money in the supermarkets, the salons, the barber shops, and the other stores and businesses, and be able to pay their rent and even build homes for themselves, thereby creating a multiplier effect for economic activity. Mr. Speaker, everything has a ripple effect. In addition, the team at the Tongan Country Planning Department processed 191 building permit applications, which are a more firm indicator of actual ongoing construction activity. Mr. Speaker, bear in mind, while these numbers on their own indicate a high volume of work, this was all achieved in a 10-month period. Like the rest of the businesses in the economy during 2020, Tongan and Country Planning Department was closed for a combined 6 weeks due to the pandemic, and also worked in a limited capacity for another 2 weeks while relocating from the RTO Need Administration Complex to its present location at the RG Hajj Plaza. Despite the global pandemic, I must say that the team at the Tongan and Country Planning Department continues to push forward. Already 2021, as expected, has begun on much the same pace. Mr. Speaker, as we close out the first quarter of 2021, Tongan and Country Planning have processed over 150 planning applications. Needless to say, on this pace, the team at the Tongan and Country Planning Department has projected that the 2021 numbers will easily surpass that of 2020 for the same time period. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, Tongan and Country Planning Department was designated by this government as one of the priority agencies to be brought back on stream following the initial 24-hour curfew in order to stimulate the economy during the challenging periods of COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, this was forward thinking by your government. Mr. Speaker, as construction was one of the industries to reopen immediately, it was mandatory to have the regulatory agencies functioning up and running. I must say that given the protocols established to manage the pandemic response, Tongan and Country Planning Department had to quickly implement new procedures to manage the application processes while minimizing in-person contact with their clients. Within a few weeks, the department was able to launch a completely new electronic system of submitting applications. Mr. Speaker, this is innovation. This new system was built on the existing application tracking database. Your government is happy to report that for the past several months, all applications are processed electronically, including payments and stamping of documents. This electronic process has been embraced and applauded by the architects, engineers, surveyors, and others that access the department's service on a regular basis. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the Tongan and Country Planning Department, the Planning Authority, and the Building Authority for their continued commitment to making things happen for the people and the economy of the Virgin Islands. We continue to move forward with great optimism. And Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
I thank the Premier for his statement. At this time, I recognize the Deputy Premier and Minister for Education, Culture, Youth Affairs, Fisheries, and Agriculture, and member for the 7th District, Dr. the Honorable Natalia D. Wheatley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My first statement is an education update. Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful for this opportunity to share in this honorable House and with the entire community updates on education and progress over the last months as we look at the final term for the 2020-2021 school year. Many costly adjustments had to be made in all schools in the territory to ensure safety and to instill the COVID-19 protocols established by the Ministry of Health. Social distancing, extra wash stations for the washing of hands, and classrooms equipped with sanitization stations for students. Hybrid online learning was implemented and has been utilized for the last 2 terms while we sought to ensure that the best possible pedagogical practices were enforced. Mr. Speaker, the hybrid model of learning was necessary to conform to our robust approach to keeping our children safe. Because of the social distancing requirements mandated by Cabinet and enforced by the Ministry of Health, combined with the number of students and the size of the classrooms, we have been unable to accommodate full classes at most of the schools in the territory. Contrary to misinformation that has been circulated in the public sphere, both private schools and public schools were faced with this dilemma. Some public schools with smaller class sizes were able to have face-to-face learning all day for 5 days a week. Some private schools, similar to our larger public schools, used a hybrid model where the students did not have access to face-to-face learning every day. So this concept that private schools were quote-unquote fully open was false. The BVI also is not the only place in the world facing these challenges, Mr. Speaker. According to UNESCO, more than 888 million children worldwide continue to face disruptions to their education due to full and partial school closures. We acknowledge, Mr. Speaker, that the hybrid model has limitations and is not the most ideal for all learners. I am therefore happy to report that on the 7th of April, 2021, Cabinet decided to reduce the 6 feet social distancing requirement of 6 feet to 3 feet to facilitate an increase in the number of students being able to access on-site instruction in schools throughout the territory. This is in keeping with guidance from the WHO, the CDC, and other bodies. In addition, Cabinet granted permission to the Ministry of Education, with the approval of the Ministry for Health and Social Development, to vary the 3 feet distancing requirement as needed to accommodate all homeroom groups in the larger primary and secondary schools, to facilitate daily on-site classes as determined by the principals. This adjustment to the social distance in the classroom, Mr. Speaker, will allow the majority of the schools to accommodate all students currently enrolled. Therefore, beginning Monday, the 19th of April, the start of this Trinity school term, most schools will have students on site for 5 days a week for classes, much like pre-COVID. The Elmer Stout High School, Brigado Flax Educational Center, and the Enid Scatliff Pre-Primary School will continue to utilize the hybrid shift modality and gradually increase the number of students daily on campus. It is important to note that there are other safety protocols which must be adhered to continually. Mr. Speaker, due to the number of students enrolled at the Elmer Stout High School, selected groups from grades 7 through 9 are attending classes on campus, while the majority of students in those grades remain in online classes. However, with the possibility of having a 3-feet distance setup, gradually more sessions on campus will be introduced. For the senior school, plans are to eventually implement a shift system to have all students attending classes 5 days a week. While the major setbacks for all 3 schools are centered on the shortage of available resources to accommodate the student population, the ongoing reconstruction at Brigado Flax Educational Center, Secondary Division, is an additional constraint with the rebuild works of buildings 2 and 3. As a result of the construction, the number of students on the secondary division of the school campus has been limited to the technical students, special education, and marginalized groups. Construction works are nearing completion, and the final walkthrough and handover is scheduled for the 5th of May. We are looking forward to our staff and students being able to occupy the buildings by the end of May 2021. For the Ivan Dawson Primary School, infrastructural works and campus cleanup, which have been ongoing since 11th of January 2021, are nearing completion. The repairs are completed, and the next phase of thoroughly cleaning the building will begin. This we anticipate to take place once the necessary resources can be secured to complete the cleaning process. The school remains at the King Garden Bay Baptist Church Hall for classes. Mr. Speaker, as the schools reopen for the majority to be back in school for 5 days, we will continue to ensure that all the sanitization and hygiene protocols are in place. Recent information posted indicates that as of the 5th of April, there were 8,246 persons in the territory who have received COVID-19 vaccinations, and the number would be higher, and we'll hear that from the Minister of Health. And I am pleased to inform this Honorable House that several educators have taken the first dose of the vaccine. Some schools have held discussion sessions with staff on the vaccine, and the final groups will be completed in the upcoming week. We must thank Dr. Ronald Georges, Dr. Kedrick Pickering, Dr. June Samuels, and members of the medical team from the BVI Health Services Authority who have been making the presentations and engaging discussions about the vaccine with the staff and faculty within the schools. Mr. Speaker, school schedules and other logistical details will be shared with parents on a school-by-school basis, as there is still some uniqueness for most. What we have determined from the ministry level is that beginning on the 19th of April, the start of the Trinity term, is that school will begin at 8:40 a.m. Students can be dropped off between 7:45 to 8:30 a.m. The breaks and lunch times will be staggered for the grade levels in an effort to minimize students having the opportunities to gather in groups. Parents are to secure packed lunches for their children from vendors if they are not able to give them lunch from home. School dismissal will also be done in a staggered manner by grade levels, as determined by the principals of each school. Transportation of students to campus is still the responsibility of the parents. The organized bus transportation will continue for secondary students who utilize this means to attend school. Parents are to ensure their child comes to school with a face shield or mask and their personal container of hand sanitizer. All students must have their materials, including textbooks, writing tools, and electronic devices, as sharing will not be permitted. School attendance is mandatory for all teachers and students. Electronic devices must be used in school daily. This means that despite the fact that students are now back in the classroom, the use of technology in the teaching and learning process will continue. As we have determined, this methodology and instructional format with the use of electronic devices is now official in school delivery, electronic textbooks, as well as Google Classroom, must be fully utilized. Principals are challenged to ensure that this happens in school on a regular basis. Mr. Speaker, as I mentioned in a previous statement, the ministry was able to secure a number of Promethean boards and computers for use at the school. We have been able to distribute all Promethean boards and computers to the schools for daily use. The ICT unit has delivered 796 Lenovo 14-inch wide laptops to public schools, with the exception of the Ivan Dawson Primary School. The last delivery was made on April 13 to the Robinson O'Neill Memorial Primary School. The laptops for the Ivan Dawson Primary School have been prepared and are currently in storage at the office until they can be secured on school campuses. This process will begin in the coming days. For the staff, training will continue. Professional development sessions engage the staff in workshops by subject and grade, and for the support staff in areas that will improve the delivery of the services they offer that impact the daily administration of education. Promethean, in collaboration with the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth Affairs, Fisheries, and Agriculture, will be hosting Promethean training for all educators. This training seeks to enhance and develop tech integration strategies in the teaching and learning process using the newly installed Promethean titanium active panels. The upcoming training sessions will specifically cover the following: Promethean titanium active panel features, active Inspire, and class flow. The training will be held virtually on the 5th through the 6th of May 2021 from 3:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Educators will be required to pre-register for the upcoming sessions. A virtual registration form will be emailed to all educators from Promethean's education consultant in the next few weeks. Mr. Speaker, co-curricular activities for the upcoming term include inter-secondary athletic meet scheduled for the 6th of May, inter-primary and secondary school spelling bee begins on the 25th of May, and the preschool games on the 28th of May 2021. A major focus for this term also will be end-of-year finals and standardized examinations. The key stage assessments for grades 2, 4, and 6 will be on the 11th of June. Caribbean Examination Council examinations, CSEC and CAPE, will commence on the 14th of June, and the Caribbean Vocational Examination will also commence on the 16th of June. Mr. Speaker, we are anticipating a very productive term as we intend to end strong this academic year. Graduation and exit ceremonies will commence on the 24th of June. Further details will be released in the coming weeks. Discussions are ongoing for summer academic programs to engage selected groups of students in an effort to fill gaps in learning over the school year. Our hybrid blended learning, reduced face-to-face sessions, truant behaviors of some students, and high absenteeism may have brought on learning defections, which we hope to offer some assistance to recover from through these programs. Mr. Speaker, finally, this term we look forward to the consultations, reviews, updates, finalizing and ratification of several policies and/or legislation, including the Education Act, Teacher and Administrator Standards, Curriculum Policy, and Graduation Requirements. I've been engaging the Education Advisory Board and other stakeholders for their input in the finalization of these policies, and the process has been going well. Mr. Speaker, as the ministry continues its plans for the upcoming school year, I wish to remind parents that the deadline for primary school admittance is the 30th of April. Additionally, the application process for grade 6 students who will be moving on to grade 7 is now opened until the 30th of June 2021. Application forms are available online, or they can be collected from the ministry on the 3rd floor of the wards building. Mr. Speaker, I express thanks to the Chief Education Officer and her staff at the ministry, principals and staff in all schools, the maintenance team, and parents for their non-stop commitment and hard work. we continue to strive to offer our students the best educational opportunities given the constraints of COVID-19. We endeavor to educate all in these changing times. I ask for the continued cooperation and patience of all as we work through the anomalies presented daily as a result of the worldwide prevalence of the pandemic. Mr. Speaker, I have a couple more. Bear with me, please. Mr. Speaker, the next statement is a statement on Farmers and Fishers Week 2021. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to provide a brief statement on the upcoming Farmers and Fishers Week planned for the week of the 25th of April to the 1st of May 2021. The week will be celebrated under the theme Restore, Increase, Sustain, and Educate, or simply abbreviated as RISE. This year we celebrate farmers and fishers collectively as food producers with an emphasis on public awareness and education, as we reflect on the accomplishments we have made, whether large or small. It is always good to pause, reflect, and give thanks. The acronym RISE, we hope, succinctly articulates our collective vision for these sectors, ones that are adaptive, diverse, sustainable, and ever abundant. Our intention, Mr. Speaker, is not to mirror what has happened before, as we are still very much in a state of recovery, and recovery can take time. Due to COVID-19 restrictions and concerns with security, fishers, for instance, could not fish as they were used to, particularly into the evening and early morning hours. In terms of our farmers, we only need to look around and see that we are experiencing some drier conditions, resulting in lower production levels for many farmers. Nonetheless, we must continue to support and encourage our fishers and farmers in their efforts to innovate and be adaptive. We want to keep them at the forefront of our discussions about our future as a territory, as we walk through ways to carry forward these sectors in ways that ensure they remain with us forever. As I have mentioned before, Mr. Speaker, Farmers and Fishers Week will have a heavy emphasis on public awareness and education. You can expect daily radio quizzes and features on the Almanac on ZBVI, a digital publication that highlights the history and diversity of these sectors. Short informational videos featuring farmers and fishers that can be easily viewed and shared across various media platforms. Dessert competitions at the secondary and tertiary levels, and a fish soup competition among our many cooks across the territory. A panel discussion on the topic, The Future of Food Production, Can the Virgin Islands Rise to the Challenge? Featuring professionals with business, education, and science backgrounds who are immersed daily in food production, and highlights from work being carried out in school gardens and our commitment to provide support for this. Farmers and Fishers Week will also include ceremonies for the renaming of the Fisherman's Dock in Bargus Bay, the opening of the Animal Pound, and the dedication of the new tractor and animal trailers at Paraquita Bay. The Department of Agriculture and Fisheries will also host an open house to allow the community to tour its grounds and learn more about the department's work. The week will culminate with a market day for fishers and farmers on the grounds in Paraquita Bay on Saturday, the 1st of May. And I'm calling all fishers and farmers, including our backyard gardeners, to come out to showcase and sell your goods. This is a time for solidarity and camaraderie among our food producers. This is about you, about celebrating and honoring you, and we hope you will come out in numbers as a show of commitment to these industries and to each other. Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank those farmers and fishers who have registered so far to assist the department in finalizing its plans. With the COVID-19 guidelines we have to pay keen attention to the number of persons in attendance. The department will be putting measures in place to control the number of persons who will be allowed on the grounds at any given time during the course of the coming week. The communication plan for this week of activities will be rolled out. Mr. Speaker, I also call on the community to come out and support our food producers, recognizing their hard work to produce and harvest healthy, wholesome fruits, vegetables, meats, and fish for our collective benefit. As we are seeking to rise in the agriculture and fisheries sector, Mr. Speaker, I would just like to mention that in collaboration with the Ministry of Transportation, Works, and Utilities, to the team at the Water and Sewage Department, significant progress is being made on improving the water supply to the Paraquita Bay farms, and I'd like to thank the Minister and his team for all of the work that they have been putting in at Paraquita Bay concerning the production and distribution of water. For years, our farmers have been crying out for adequate water supply, and I'm very pleased with the progress being made to date. Very soon as well, we will also have a water policy for the farmers. We are definitely now seeing light at the end of the tunnel. Once this water situation at Paraquita Bay has been rectified, Mr. Speaker, our next step will be to develop our production plan for the area and to ensure that leases are signed for all farmers who occupy spaces there. I'll be providing further details on this in the coming months, Mr. Speaker. I thank you for the opportunity to update on fishing and farming. Mr. Speaker, I also have a statement on youth and sports development. Mr. Speaker, I take this opportunity to update this Honorable House on the Ministry's efforts in youth and sports development in the territory. I'm very pleased, Mr. Speaker, to announce that the Department of Youth Affairs and Sports long-planned Be Youth Center was launched on Friday, the 9th of April, 2021. The center is a centralized, dedicated, and safe space focused on meeting the needs of our youth. It consists of 3 rooms housed on the 2nd floor of the wards building. The first room functions as a general room or lounge where less formal activities may take place and is outfitted with vibrant modular furniture, computers, laptops, a network printer, and a smart television. The second room, the BYC studio, functions as a video and audio studio as well as a small meeting room and is equipped with state-of-the-art equipment. Finally, the third space is a locker room for registered users of the center to safely store their belongings while they use the space. Mr. Speaker, it must be noted here that the Be Youth Center's launch was due to tremendous support from businesses in the community. From its inception in 2015, the Department of Youth Affairs and Sports fostered relationships with private enterprises in the community to acquire the necessary services and tools needed to establish the center. At the time of the launch, 14 businesses had committed services and equipment, ranging from interior design to computers, paint supplies, and storage lockers, digital mixers to electrical and lighting materials, and workmen to ensure that the work was done safely and at a high standard. An electronic key system to ensure the security of users within the center was also sponsored. Mr. Speaker, the generosity of our business community must be acknowledged, and indulge me while I share who they are. Digicel, Enrique Esteban Interiors, STO Enterprises, Atlan Heavy Equipment, Quality Construction, Quality Air Conditioning and Refrigeration, Metro Construction, Sables Law, Brivadorm Dermatology Suite and Medispa, Island Services Limited, the Paint Factory, the House of Luxury, the Unite BVI Foundation, Said Department Store, the Minister for Health and Social Development and Territorial at-Large Representative, Honorable Calvin Malone, Advertise It BVI, Beyond the Decor, iSmart, Vector Stars. Mr. Speaker, the end goal of the Bee Youth Center is to produce empowered, creative young entrepreneurs. It also aims to ensure our young people win at life. Programs will be offered in professional development and job readiness, independence through entrepreneurship, music production, coding, app development, and innovation. Programs will also be offered to help our youth win at life and include areas like life skills, civics, public speaking, lifestyle, money management, and conflict resolution. An avenue for discussion on issues, concerns that directly impact youth, provision of solutions, and advocacy for change will also be provided. Registered users will have access to all these programs. Mr. Speaker, the Bee Youth Center will operate Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., allowing for our professional youth to access the services after hours. Programs are scheduled to commence on Monday, the 3rd of May, 2021. Mr. Speaker, registration for the Bee Youth Center is now open, and youth between ages 15 to 29 are encouraged to take advantage of the many programs and courses that will be offered. A monthly fee of $10 is required. Registration forms may be found on the government's website on the DYAS page, on the DYAS Facebook page, DYAS BVI, or may be collected at the Department of Youth Affairs and Sports, located on the 2nd floor of the Wards building. If anyone needs more information, contact can be made with Mrs. Desiree Flanders Harrigan, Program Officer for Youth. Mr. Speaker, at this point, I must commend the Director and her team for their commitment and determination in ensuring that the Bee Youth Center became a reality. The journey of the center shared by Mrs. Letsamtai at the launch showed that despite all the obstacles, including hurricanes and the COVID-19 pandemic, DYAS was determined to provide the youth of the territory with a safe and secure space to develop and grow. Turning to sports, Mr. Speaker, even with all the challenges imposed by the pandemic, the Department of Youth Affairs continues to provide opportunities for sports and recreation within the territory. Mr. Speaker, on the 12th March 2021, the department presented a modified inter-primary school sports championship in which 17 schools participated. Due to concerns with social distancing, a maximum of 8 athletes were allowed from each school. After a day of intense competition, the Joyce Samuel Primary School emerged as the winner. History was made that day, as it is the first time Joyce Samuel Primary School won the title. Mr. Speaker, not to be left behind, the inter-secondary school championships are planned for the 5th of May 2021, and all secondary schools are invited to furnish a team. This championship will follow a similar structure as its primary counterpart. I invite everyone to support the schools while adhering to the protocols in place. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to share the Department of Youth Affairs and Sports is still able to engage our community in being active. Within these first 4 months of 2021, they have provided 2 such opportunities for the community to the industrial leagues. The DYAS Industrial Bowling League commenced on the 22nd of February 2021 with a total of 14 teams. Just a week ago, leagues concluded with the championships and the ATU Jammers emerged as champions, and I'm greatly disappointed, Mr. Speaker, that I didn't get to participate, being the expert bowler that I am. Mr. Speaker, the Industrial Softball League commenced just 2 nights ago on the 13th of April with a roster of 14 teams. The league will run for a total of 6 weeks. Again, we invite everyone to support the teams while adhering to the protocols, and Mr. Speaker, I believe I will participate in the softball, inspired by my colleagues, Honorable Neville Smith and Honorable Kai Reimer, who are doing big things or are playing tonight. Yes. Also on the topic of sports, Mr. Speaker, strides are being made in the establishment of the National Sports Council. Currently, the ministry is in collaboration with the BVI Olympic Committee in the delivery of a working document that should speak to the organization of local sports, a level of accountability for government resources, cooperation among the sporting bodies and associations as it relates to use of facilities, resources and initiatives. Looking at the roadmap to sports tourism and the development of new sporting facilities and new areas of interest in sports, this will become the basis for the establishment of the National Sports Council, and I anticipate that by September we will be in the final stages of its establishment. On the topic of arts and culture, Mr. Speaker, after an outstanding inaugural Quarap Teen Battle in 2020, the Department of Youth Affairs and Sports is presenting its Quarap Teen Battle 2nd edition. The competition will begin on the 30th of April with a total of 12 competitors, with championships slated for the 21st of May. Mr. Speaker, I must acknowledge our young people who are making a name for themselves around the world. Athletes like Adeja Hajj, who continue to rack up gold medals, and athletes like Recoy Brathwaite, who did so well in the NCAA Division I championships and was a Big Ten Athlete of the Year. They continue to make us proud. And we also look to the Olympics, where Chantel Malone, Kyron McMaster, Eldred Henry, and Ashley Kelly, among others, will be competing. I also want to acknowledge Mr. Demoy Hodge and Mr. Franklin Penn, who made the NCAA tournament of 64 teams and did very well. And we will be acknowledging them on this Friday at a motorcade. I believe the time is at 4 p.m. And flyers have been circulated on social media. I also want to acknowledge a young man by the name of Rakim Tadman, who is a music engineer working with some of the best artists in the world. And everything that he touched seems to turn to gold. And that's why persons around the world are saying, "Celeb, press the button." So I acknowledge him and all the other young persons in the community who are making strides. Continue to share your accomplishments with the Department of Youth Affairs and Sports. Finally, Mr. Speaker, let me take this opportunity to commend the Director of Youth Affairs and Sports, Mrs. Brenda Letsam-Tai, and a small but powerful team on their commitment and the creative ways in which they have continued to positively develop our youth and sports during these changing and challenging times. I fully support the work of the department and their partners, and I look forward to their continued efforts on behalf of youth and sports in the territory. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm having just a little challenge bringing up my last statement. Can you go to the other ministers with your kind indulgence and come back to me, please?
If that's your wish, sir, it's
Thank
granted.
you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I now recognize the Minister for Transportation, Works and Utilities and member for the 5th District, the Honorable Kai M. Reimer, for his statements.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to provide an update to this Honorable House and the citizenry of this territory on important infrastructure project affecting the entire territory. The water infrastructure is aged and dilapidated, and as a result, frequent repairs of leaks and water line breakage have become the daily demands of the Water and Sewage Department. Thus, with the support of the Ministry, the Water and Sewage Department has emphasized improving and enhancing the water distribution networks. Mr. Speaker, noting this critical resource, the Ministry of Transportation, Works and Utilities has been working tirelessly to improve the territory's water storage and distribution capacity. The improvement works include reducing pressure with pressure-reducing valves, leak detection exercises, leak repairs with resilient material, installation of air release valves, and meterization. Mr. Speaker, I need to iterate that the territory does not have a water production problem. We are producing more than enough potable water to supply the entire population. Our challenges lie in the storage capacities and distribution networks. Mr. Speaker, execution of these water improvement projects, of course, have not been spared from setbacks credited to the pandemic, COVID-19, which has caused financial challenges and time delays. Notwithstanding the times, inevitable challenges, we have been making steady strides to upgrade the water network distribution system, specifically the installation of new water reservoirs in the Longbush and Caribbean communities. These tanks have been substantially completed, and the Recovery and Development Agency, which is the executing agency, is in collaboration with the ministry, is in final preparation for the Caribbean Reservoirs handover ceremony, which is slated for the week of 26 April 2021. In the Rotown area, works continue to progress to commission the Longbush Reservoir. This has caused many inconveniences to residents, to businesses, and motorists. During the latter part of last month, the contractor commenced installing district metered area DMA's bulk meters, as these meters enable hydraulic isolation and complete water usage recording in sections of the general network, and we will have better water usage accountability by communities. We will further provide more precise data in executing efficient leak detection exercises. This phase of the water improvement project will also help us to reduce the amount of non-revenue water. Mr. Speaker, please allow me this opportunity to extend sincere apologies for the frequent water interruption and traffic disruptions during this time. These inconveniences are necessary, though, to facilitate the works to progress to a more reliable and efficient water supply. The nature of work surrounding the meter project required some level of excavation along the public road to expose the water distribution mains at strategic locations, facilitating the installation of 15 4x4 concrete chambers, which house the bulk meters and other necessary components underground. Coupled with the installation of these bulk meters, this project will also yield the installation of more than 200 digital meters throughout the Rotown area in Huntersgut, Longbush, Lower State, and Main Street. Mr. Speaker, I am cognizant that many other communities have also experienced very frequent and frustrating water interruptions that last for lengthy periods. I ask for your continued patience and understanding as the team works to identify and rectify the contributing factors that affect the water supply or distribution. These are problems this administration has met, and unfortunately are not quick overnight fixes. However, we continue to pledge to rectify and improve the territory's water distribution, thereby ensuring that potable water is accessible to all citizens. The lack of available water and long-term sustainable use of water resources is of growing concern to the farmers and also to this Ministry of Transportation, Works and Utilities, and likewise that of the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth Affairs, Fisheries, and Agriculture, as the Minister just mentioned. On average, Mr. Speaker, agriculture at Farrakita Bay currently accounts for 150 gallons per minute, or over 300,000 gallons of water being withdrawn from our distribution network in the span of just 4 hours. And might I add that water use or demand is also expected to increase from other programs that irrigate food production in the area in the near future. Mr. Speaker, my ministry continues to implement several programs to improve the availability of water to the farmers at Farrakita Bay. In May last year, the Water and Sewage Department technicians retrofitted a pump station in a holding tank at the existing Farrakita Bay treatment plant to provide a storage point and buffer or period of continued supply whenever there's a disruption in our current distribution from breaks and leaks. Additionally, a couple weeks ago, Mr. Speaker, my ministry, through the Department of Water and Sewage, provide an alternative means of distributing water into Farrakita Bay by installing over 3,000 feet of pipelines over a rigorous terrain from the top of Spring Gut. For this to happen, Mr. Speaker, I must commend the staff at Water and Sewage as they worked tirelessly and in the progress had to endure many challenges. Some got stung from Jack Spaniels, some got cuts, bumps, and bruises, and others had to avoid snakes and all sorts of hazards. Mr. Speaker, it was a challenging job. Yet the Water and Sewage Department staff made the sacrifice and remained committed to the cause of improving the availability of water for food security, which is a true benefit to all of us here in the Virgin Islands. Mr. Speaker, I ask that we highly commend the staff at Water and Sewage Department for the work they continue to do on behalf of this government and the territory as a whole. Mr. Speaker, this is not all. We are now embarking on another project in collaboration with the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth Affairs, Fisheries and Agriculture to further improve water availability to the farmers. A couple days ago, you might have noticed the staff of Water and Sewage at it again in Farrakita Bay. This time, Mr. Speaker, they were upgrading specific existing segments of the main distribution pipelines that are pretty much past their useful life and suspected of having leaks which may be contributing to low pressure or no water pressure to some farm lots at higher elevation. Mr. Speaker, the Water and Sewage team will also be installing a pump in one of the wells at the H.L. Stout Community College and recommissioning it to provide yet another alternative source for improved availability of water to the farmers at Farrakita Bay. When it is all said and done, Mr. Speaker, this government, along with my ministry and that of the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth Affairs, Fisheries, and Agriculture, would have established multiple sources from which to juggle to ensure improved availability of water for improved food and agricultural production and security. Mr. Speaker, the work continues. for the people of this territory. And I would like to end by reassuring the people of the Virgin Islands that we will continue to be committed to investing in improving our water infrastructure and building the territory's capacity for resilience and sustainability in these ever-changing times. And Mr. Speaker, as I speak about the water situation, I also acknowledge our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent at this time, Mr. Speaker. And I want to let those persons know that this government has committed to providing water, as that is a critical need to them at this time. And Mr. Speaker, I've reached out to some of the truck owners in the territory, and they have committed that they would provide water. They would take their trucks down to St. Vincent once there are available space on the badge, so that we can also provide water to the citizens of St. Vincent. So, Mr. Speaker, with those few words, I say thank you for allowing me this opportunity.
Thank you. Deputy Premier, are you ready now, or should I? You're ready. Okay, I call upon the Deputy Premier to present his final statement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my final statement is an update on recreational facilities in the territory. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to be able to provide an update on the work being done by the Recreation Trust to ensure the fullest and most beneficial use of our public recreation grounds and other recreational facilities throughout the territory. Mr. Speaker, a few months ago, on the 17th of January, I was pleased to join the chairman, members of the board, and the staff at a church service at the King Garden Bay Baptist Church in observance of the 55th anniversary of the Recreation Trust Act coming into force. This signaled the beginning of a series of activities in which the Trust is seeking to bring a greater level of awareness to the role of the Trust and its operations. 9 months ago, Mr. Speaker, a new Trust was appointed, and I must place on record my sincere appreciation to the new chairman, Mrs. Dawn Crabb-Horbert, and the other members for the tremendous work they have been doing to improve the overall administration of the Trust and the recreational facilities in the territory. They have made significant strides in restructuring the Trust operations and have been putting various measures in place to improve the efficiency of the Trust, greater effectiveness in the management of the facilities, and to ensure that the Trust is operating in adherence to the various laws of the Virgin Islands. In terms of financial accountability, Mr. Speaker, the Trust has been making steady progress in the implementation of its fiscal strategy, a financial management plan to control spending, the installation of QuickBooks for tracking the Trust's accounting, and visual payroll for managing payroll has been some of the measures implemented to date. The Trust has also been working closely with the Office of the Auditor General to provide the relevant information for outstanding audits to ensure its conformity with the requirements of the Recreation Trust Act. To date, Mr. Speaker, the audited financial statements have been completed for the years 2004 through 2005 and 2010 through 2013. The documentation has been submitted for the years 2014 through 2016, so the audits are in the process of being finalized. Efforts are now being made to obtain outstanding documentation for the years 2006 and 2009, so that information can be submitted to the Office of the Auditor General. This has been a difficult task, Mr. Speaker, so I must commend the chairman and her team for the diligence in seeking to rectify this long-standing matter. Mr. Speaker, maintenance of recreational facilities is a major component of the Trust's mandate, and the maintenance team has been working diligently to fix and maintain the facilities under its care. A field schedule has been implemented where 2 teams are now visiting the facilities regularly. Additionally, the Trust has purchased a number of much-needed equipment for the maintenance of the facilities on Tortola, including 2 lawnmowers, 4 bush cutters, 1 Hustler 54 zero-turn lawnmower, as well as a pickup truck. The Trust is presently working on obtaining another vehicle to be assigned to Virgin Gorda. At least 1 other vehicle is needed to enable the Trust to better manage the maintenance of its 26 facilities. But this will only be possible with the provision of additional funding. The Trust is now finalizing registration for a software program to ensure a more effective management and maintenance program for stakeholders' use of its facilities. On the sister island of Virgin Gorda, Mr. Speaker, the Trust is presently completing major renovation works at the Walters Park. The Virgin Gorda community has been generous in its contributions for this project, both monetary and in kind, and for these we are extremely grateful. To fulfill the Trust's mandate during the quarter, to ensure the effective maintenance of its facilities, the Trust will be working in close collaboration with other partners. The Walters Park, East End Park, and Benjamin Romney Park will be done in partnership with the National Parks Trust. The A.O. Shirley Recreation Ground, the E. Walwyn Bruley Softball Field, the Bandstand, and the Longbush Playground will be done in partnership with the City Manager. The Trust is working closely with the Ministry of Education on works at the Seacows Bay basketball court to address safety matters, restore the restroom, and clean up the area for more parking. And that's a commitment I made to the member for the 3rd District and the people of the 3rd District. Meanwhile, a possible donor to assist with the perimeter fencing at the Greenland Field has been identified, and the Trust will soon be embarking on the upkeep of the Millicent Mercer softball field. I also acknowledge the work being done by our partner, the Ministry of Transportation, Works and Utilities, and the Public Works Department in cleaning up the park at Bruce Bay. Looking ahead, Mr. Speaker, the Trust has been leading the charge on behalf of the Ministry to meet with various stakeholders for discussions on the restoration of the pavilion at the A.O. Shirley Recreation Grounds. A draft outline in accordance with the collective agreement is being formulated with the Recovery and Development Agency to get this process tabled for a phased completion. Mr. Speaker, as the Trust seeks to ensure safe recreational facilities for the benefit of all in the territory, we know that greater financial investments will have to be made. With all the works being done, Mr. Speaker, the government's annual subvention to the Trust has remained constant. Therefore, in the not-too-distant future, the Trust will embark on a review of its tariff and services with the aim of determining where its revenue streams can be increased. I'm grateful to the Chairman and the members of the Trust for the many strides made during the short period of their appointment, and wish to express my profound gratitude to them for their dedication to duty. I would also like to thank the many donors who have been coming forward to support the work of the Trust by making various forms of donations. I also invite others who have been contemplating making a donation to come forward and support the work of the Trust. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
I thank the Deputy Premier for his final statement. At this time, I recognize the Minister for Natural Resources, Labor and Immigration, and member for the 9th District, the Honorable Vincent O. Whitley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to give a few statements covering many areas under my responsibility. Mr. Speaker, I will begin by an update on the stony coral tissue loss disease. Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me the opportunity to give another update on a stony coral tissue loss disease that has been affecting our waters. Mr. Speaker, the Virgin Islands are blessed with beautiful underwater life. Our corals provide vital ecosystem services in the forms of food, shoreline protection against wave action, which would erode our beaches and shores, and are main attractions to residents and tourists alike. Over several decades, government has partnered through the National Parks Trust and the then Conservation and Fisheries Department to protect and conserve this vital resource so that future generations may enjoy the benefits of healthy ecosystems. Mr. Speaker, this threat to our reefs, which emerged in 2020 as we were also mitigating the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, was devastating. As I noted in my last update, Mr. Speaker, Stony coral tissue loss disease, or SCTLD for short, aggressively wastes away the calcium-based structures supporting the living tissue of the coral. In a matter of a few weeks, otherwise healthy reef communities are going to be decimated if the disease were left unchecked. Colonies where the coral tissue is no longer present are covered with filamentous algae, being a clear indication of how critical it is to save our ridge reef systems so that they do not change into macroalgae environments of little biodiversity and economic value. The impact of doing nothing will be tremendous on our natural environment and our economy. Government, in partnership with private sector, have responded to the challenge. The Coral Strike Team, CST, which was created and led by the National Parks Trust of the Virgin Islands and consisting of not only officers from the Trust, but also the environmental unit of the Ministry of Natural Resources, Labor and Immigration, and Beyond the Reef, a local non-governmental organization, began working assiduously to save this precious resource. Late December of 2020, the CST expanded with volunteers from Dive Corporation, Dive BVI, Weeby Diving, Sunchaser Scuba, Kuan La, Blue Water Divers, and Sail Caribbean. Divers were trained in coral identification, disease diagnosis, SCTLD monitoring protocols, and treatment measures. With the assistance of the CST team, SCTLD was found present at 33 dive sites, ranging from Jas Van Dijk, the Southern Keys, to North Sound. Fortunately, the disease is not found at the Horseshoe Reef in Enegada. To date, over 3,000 individual coral colonies have been treated. Monitoring efforts continue as new disease lesions can erupt in multiple locations across already treated colonies. Ongoing efforts aim to ensure that the bacteria that causes the disease no longer affects the colony. Every week, Mr. Speaker, new colonies are being treated. Mr. Speaker, an extensive educational outreach program was launched to educate the public about SCTLD, which consists of billboards and a three-part animated cartoon series created by Nadia Turnbull. Waterproof printed materials aim to sensitize boaters as to the need to discharge their ballast waters 1,000 feet away from land. Mr. Speaker, SCTLD mitigation efforts are currently funded by Unite BVI and the Governor's Office. Mr. Speaker, these and other efforts aim to ensure that our beautiful reefs continue to provide the ecosystem services that are critical to our biodiversity, infrastructure, and economy. I commend those who are tirelessly working to abate the worst impacts of SCTLD. I also implore boaters to adhere to the requests made. The well-being and longevity of our reefs and natural environment must be safeguarded for the benefits of all and future generations, which is of paramount importance to this government. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Moving on, Mr. Speaker. Housing St. Vincent and the Grenadines citizens. Mr. Speaker, like was said before, I am sure that we are all aware of the situation in St. Vincent and the Grenadines with the eruption of the Frey volcano. Mr. Speaker, the government and people of the Virgin Islands stand ready to assist our brothers and sisters in whichever way possible. Mr. Speaker, as a government, we have been meeting and making plans on how to assist in various ways, and our Premier has been in contact with Prime Minister Gonsalves and other Caribbean leaders as we make these plans. Mr. Speaker, the relationship between the BVI and St. Vincent and the Grenadines has deep roots and covers many years. Mr. Speaker, it is a cherished relationship. Mr. Speaker, many persons living in a BVI are connected either directly or indirectly with people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and have expressed interest in housing them here in the BVI. Mr. Speaker, our first response to this crisis is to provide much-needed aid to the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. That is why, Mr. Speaker, we have partnered with the many NGOs, you heard earlier, and Easy Shipping to send the barge load of supplies to St. Vincent and the Grenadines next week. Mr. Speaker, as Minister for Immigration, I have charged the department to come up with a policy and logistics that would allow us to host persons here in the BVI for a period of time until the situation stabilizes in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Mr. Speaker, once completed and approved, it will be communicated to the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the wider public here in the BVI. Mr. Speaker, we will be our brother's keeper, as we know firsthand what it is like to be devastated and be at the mercy of others. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to lift up the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines in our prayers. As they go through this difficult period, we want them to know that we too are holding their hands. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, changing gears a little bit. Introduction of an expedited work permit fee. Mr. Speaker, during the 6th sitting of the 3rd session of the 4th meeting of this Honorable House, held on March 4th of this year, I brought before you a motion in the form of a statutory instrument number 14 of 2021, which introduced the statutory rates, fees, and charges amendment of Schedule Order 2021. Mr. Speaker, this allowed for Part 45, Work Permit Fees and Statutory Rates, Fees, and Charges Act 2005 to be amended, thus resulting in the introduction of an expedited work permit fee of $150. Mr. Speaker, in 2018, the Ministry of Natural Resources, Labor and Immigration introduced the Executive Work Permit Program, which is commonly known as the EWP program. That allows for workers yielding an annual salary of $100,000 or over from any industry within our territory to benefit from a specialized service when processing their work permits. Since then, a wider category of workers have been introduced to utilize the program. And this wider category of workers, this started in October of 2020. Sorry, Mr. Speaker. This new category was allowed for following government's decision to introduce an ease of doing business initiative that allows government to redefine services across all areas, allowing for more seamless processes. Mr. Speaker, as the Minister for Labor, it is my aim to introduce an area that allows for ease of doing business across all sectors for work permit processing. However, it was agreed that it would be most feasible to start with the financial services industry, which also includes legal, insurance, and accounting companies. Mr. Speaker, under both programs, applicants are able to have direct contact with members of the EWP team on the status of the applications. They have access to expedited processing of certificates with Social Security Board, National Health Insurance, and they benefit from processing times as quick as 3 business days, but no more than 12 days, which varies depending on the type of application. Since the inception of the program, the Ministry has processed a total of 789 and 9 executive work permit applications and 51 applications within the wider financial services industry, all within the allowed expedited time. Mr. Speaker, these numbers signify 760 clients who have received exceptional and specialized services at no additional cost. Mr. Speaker, we should not carry on in this way. Mr. Speaker, with the implementation of these programs, it was felt that a reasonable fee should be introduced to alleviate the costs associated with these services, which resulted in the amendment to Part 45 of the Statutory Rate, Fees, and Charges Act. Mr. Speaker, it is important to note that the introduction of this new expedited fee will be firstly utilized by the Executive Work Permit and Financial Services Industry Work Permit Program, whose work permit applications are currently processed by the team at the Ministry of Natural Resources, Labor and Immigration. Mr. Speaker, that expedited fee took effect on Monday, 12 April 2021, and will be administered as a mandatory fee for utilizing these services within the ministry. Mr. Speaker, oftentimes, when new fees are introduced, it can be seen as burdensome to the individuals utilizing the applicable services. However, most times, government fees for services are below standard and do not compare to the services rendered. Mr. Speaker, the ministry and the Department of Labor and Workforce Development intends to offer a variety of more efficient, streamlined, and expeditious services to the public as we continue to reform, thus allowing us to better meet the needs of the greater array of clients we service daily. Within this evolution of labor-related services, Mr. Speaker, the public will be hearing more in the coming weeks about our enhanced services and the long-awaited introduction of technology to our work permit processing services. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Work permit exemption. Mr. Speaker, as was promised at the 6th sitting of this Honorable House, I am now standing again before you with an update on the existing work permit exemption policy. Mr. Speaker, the work permit exemption policy is one that is ever evolving and requires reviewing, revising, and renewing as the climate continues to change in our territory. Firstly, Mr. Speaker, I want to bring awareness to the public on the reason for such a policy, as it has become more evident that a policy such as this can easily be misused, whether unintentionally or otherwise. The work permit exemption policy is one that has grown immensely over the years in the number of persons that apply and are successful. After taking up office in 2019, I quickly revised this policy with the most substantial change being where I added a term limit on the exemptions, resulting in a ceasing of the issuance of indefinite work permit exemptions. Mr. Speaker, it remains my belief that this change has allowed for the correct intent and purpose of the exemption to be realized. Mr. Speaker, further to this, the reality of persons abusing this exemption by categorizing it as a permanent status must cease. Mr. Speaker, work permit exemption is not a permanent status. It does not allow a person to change employer freely, and it does not exempt a holder from immigration control. Mr. Speaker, allow me to clarify the matter of permanent status in the territory. A permanent status is one gained by a person under the recommendation of the Immigration Board to Cabinet by virtue of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, resident status, belong status, and a naturalized citizen are permanent statuses. unless revoked under the Immigration and Passport Act or otherwise. Mr. Speaker, work permit exemption is at the discretion of the Minister for Labor and is in no way meant to be considered as a permanent status, as it is indeed a privilege, not a right. Mr. Speaker, following a constant debate on what this policy should look like, a further review was undertaken. Early in this review, we considered the trending issues, and it was agreed firstly to reestablish the connection of an approved work permit exemption to a specific employer. The intent here is to allow the whole of such an exemption to be more conscious of the importance of continued employment, which should be realized by the automatic cancellation of the exemption if a person changes his or her employer. Mr. Speaker, in addition to this, I would like to inform employers who make use of the misleading statement of, quote, work permit exemption holders preferred, unquote, right along with beef islanders and belongers on job advertisement. Mr. Speaker, this is seen as a means of defying the work permit process and ultimately marginalizes beef islanders and belongers by allowing someone not holding a permanent status to be seen as on the same playing field as a beef islander or belonger. This, too, Mr. Speaker, is wrong, and the revised policy will address this. Consequently, Mr. Speaker, I have reduced once more the categories of persons eligible to qualify for work permit exemptions by removing the category of tenure. Therefore, persons are no longer eligible to apply for work permit exemptions if employed for a specific number of years within the territory. Mr. Speaker, this will fall into line with the pending immigration reform and the aim to formalize both immigration and labor policies as it relates to the number of years a person can reside in a territory while on work permit prior to their possible transitioning into a permanent residence. However, Mr. Speaker, the categories of work permit exemption by marriage and minister's discretion will remain, albeit with new guidelines. Mr. Speaker, I would also like to point out that a grading scheme has been introduced to the minister's discretion category that would allow for a more streamlined, consistent, and fair approval of applications. Mr. Speaker, the work permit exemption issuance in this territory will move from a situation of subsidy to one of substance. Mr. Speaker, thank you for allowing me to update you on this matter.
Minister for his... Oh, you have a number? Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Shifting gears once more.
My humble apologies, sir.
Misrepresentation of earnings, certificate of good standing, and certificates of earnings submission to the Department of Labor and Workforce Development. I'm going to add my subject, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on 10th July 2020, I announced that all renewal work permit applications submitted to the Department of Labor and Workforce Development are to be accompanied by certificates of good standing from the Social Security Board, National Health Insurance, and the Inland Revenue Department on behalf of the businesses, as well as certificates of earnings on behalf of the employees from the aforementioned agencies, since no application would be accepted without these documents. Mr. Speaker, I now state that through submissions of the requisite certificates of earnings, particularly those from the Social Security Board and the Department of Inland Revenue, after conducting thorough investigations, the department found that in 2019, which is even before COVID-19 affected our shores, many employees were making less than the mandatory minimum gross income of $12,040 per annum. or gross earnings of less than established standard. In fact, many persons were not even remitting the 52 weeks contributions prescribed by the Social Security Board. It was further noted that in 2019, gross earnings for some permit holders were even listed to be as low as $960 for the entire year. Yes, $960. Additionally, some employees' work permits were even found to be held by one employer, but their contributions were being paid in under another employer, which showed that the employees were not working for the companies identified on their work permits. As such, instead of denying these work permits, the Department of Labor took a proactive stance and approved the renewals for these workers for 6 months as a means to ensure that the employer and the employee would meet the established protocols even though the permits should have been outright denied. This is what we call extending mercy, particularly during these times that we are faced with. Mr. Speaker, both employer and employee hold the responsibility for ensuring that the relevant contributions and payments being submitted to the applicable agencies for the most part, it is true that employers withhold these payments on behalf of their employees. Unfortunately, the department has found that some employers attempt to evade these responsibilities, as some cash-strapped businesses choose to take out the monies from their employees' paycheck, thus borrowing the money with the intention to pay it back later. Others simply take the money with no plan to repay it. As such, we are reminding employers that once they withhold the requisite payments from the employee's paycheck, along with their required out-of-pocket portions, the monies deducted must be reported and paid directly to these agencies on a monthly basis. Fail to ensure that these measures are taken will result in a work permit application not being processed efficiently. Pyramiding of these payments is simply theft. Business owners are withholding monies from their employees' paychecks and intentionally failing to pay them into the systems. Businesses involved in pyramiding may also try to start a new business under a different name. Paying employees in cash is another means of employers evading making these mandatory payments. While it is not illegal for a business to pay an employee in cash, but the obligatory contributions and payments should still be deducted, and a receipt showing same should be given to the employee for documentation purposes. So even if paid in cash, a pay slip, even in the form of a receipt, should accompany the payment. Whatever the reason, Mr. Speaker, not making these payments is one of the worst things an employer can do. Failure to pay constitutes stealing from their employees. Employers who engage in this practice are subject to penalties assessed by the relevant agencies. Mr. Speaker, employees are also being reminded that they too have a responsibility to ensure that the monies deducted from their salaries and wages are paid in. Employees who are concerned that their employer are withholding payments but neglect to remit them or even fail to deduct the requisite contributions payment are strongly encouraged to report their concerns to the Department of Labor and Workforce Development or the identified agencies. Mr. Speaker, it is important to understand that these contributions or payments are part of government's revenue. Therefore, when payments are not made, the government loses money that is beneficial to the running of this territory, especially during these adverse economic times. The government does not take lightly and will not relent in its efforts to collect the amounts owed. For businesses with numerous employees, the assessment of these monies owed can be huge. Additionally, falsifying salaries or wages to evade the proper payments of work permit fees being assessed is an absolute no-no. The Department of Labor has found that many work permit holders have been understating their incomes, and through the submission of these certificates, these actions have been unearthed. Therefore, I implore both employer and employee to render to the government what belongs to the government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Not done yet. Evan, you good? Mr. Speaker, Joes Hill Housing Development. This is my last statement. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to share with this honorable House and the people of the Virgin Islands an update on the Joes Hill Housing Development being carried out by the Social Security Board. Mr. Speaker, the Joes Hill Housing Development, is a housing community designed on the hillside under Joes Hill, Tortola, facing the Longbush and wider Roetown area. The property encompasses scenic views of Roetown, Salt Island, and Peter Island. The development is expected to be a gated community that includes 25 buildings, comprising a collection of 52 residential units targeting first-time homeowners, plus a commercial rental space. The units will range from 1 to 3 bedroom style condos, single-family homes, and townhouses. Mr. Speaker, the development recognized as the inaugural phase of the BVI Social Security Board's first-time homeowners program is a design-build model. In this arrangement, the contractor, James Tobin Construction Limited, is responsible for all design aspects and the construction project. The property development component is a Social Security Board's responsibility, with a project management component assigned to a third-party agency, STO Enterprises Limited. Mr. Speaker, on April 20, 2017, the territory celebrated with the Social Security Board on the groundbreaking ceremony for the development, a monumentous accomplishment for all islands. However, Mr. Speaker, it was only 5 months later that our territory was devastated by hurricanes Irma and Maria. Due to the impact of these hurricanes, the Social Security Board suspended all works on the development. On May 28, 2020, Mr. Speaker, steps were taken to restart, and a contract was executed between the Social Security Board and a contractor for the commencement of construction works. And on July 1, 2020, site mobilization works were underway. The Social Security Board took on this initiative, Mr. Speaker, with the aim to, 1, enable individuals to obtain affordable homes, 2, enable individuals to create wealth, and 3, to stimulate the BVI's economy through a multiplier effect from investments in the economy, with structures that reinforce and ensure that circulation of money in the Virgin Islands. The development's contracted time, Mr. Speaker, is roughly 3.5 years to complete it in its entirety, with an estimated completion date of June 30th, 2023. However, the progress to date impacts previously forecasted data by giving us a new estimated completion date of May 31st, 2020, 13 months ahead of schedule. Mr. Speaker, as of March 3rd, 2021, the project manager confirmed in a February report that simultaneous construction works are underway on 19 buildings, which is evidenced by the physical structures that can be seen from various areas of Central Road Town and beyond. As of March 31st, 2021, $8,433,679.31 have been expended on construction works, with $9,495,425.01 remaining to complete the project. The development continues to progress within estimated financial projections with little to no expectation of incurring cost overruns. Mr. Speaker, eligibility for first-time homeowners program requires the buyers to be Beaverlanders, belongers, or residents of a territory for the last 20 years, and that the first-time homeowners must occupy the property as their primary residence. The buyers must attend a home buyers educational program and own a certificate of completion. Once selected, a successful candidate buyers must secure a mortgage loan from a local bank. Finally, Mr. Speaker, and upon completion appraisal of the property was completed in March of 2021. At present, the Social Security Board is finalizing the award of the tender for a surveyor in assisting with its finalization of the pricing of the homes. Once the exercise is completed, information on the pricing options for the homes will be communicated to the public. Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank the board and staff of the Social Security for pushing ahead and making this project our reality. This is a project we are proud of, as this government has made home ownership for our young people a priority. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I thank the Honorable Minister for his statement. I now recognize the Minister for Health and Social Development and Territorial Member, the Honorable Corvin Malone, for his statements.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for affording me the opportunity to highlight two areas, and I would start with that of the Department of Waste Management. But before I do, I will join with the prayers offered in condolences to the Duke of Edinburgh, who's Philip, so that we extend our best wishes in terms of seeing the family through these trying periods. So I think that it will be joined in that way. Mr. Speaker, in that regard, to my statements, I'd just like to look in terms of the derelict. I'll go first with the derelict vehicles that we've had and the war that was staged, Mr. Speaker, on this initiative. Mr. Speaker, in terms of the debris management sites, we are aware, Mr. Speaker, that after the horrific storms in 2017, there was a significant increase in waste. Access to the incinerator site was impossible due to the fact that all roadways were blocked with debris. In order to overcome those two challenges, the following sites were created to manage the increased weight. Mr. Speaker, it is critical to underscore and to enlist these because significant funds have been utilized during the three and a half years since the storm. Mr. Speaker, on Tortola, there were sites, as you know, on Greenland. There were sites on Long Swamp, sites at Paraquita Bay, sites at Cox Heat. And in fact, in Cox Heat, there was a major fire on this site in May of 2018, which led to the immediate closure of the site. At the time of the fire, it is estimated that approximately 140,000 cubic yards of debris was deposited on site. Restoration work started in December of 2020 on this site, Mr. Speaker. Work there is to be completed with an additional $80,000 to be sourced so that we can bale and remove the scrap metal from the site. The scrap metal is to be exported out of the territory along with the derelict vehicles. Mr. Speaker, on the waterfront parking lot, this site was created to handle damaged cars that were blocking the roadways. They were all cleared by November of 2017. And in Packwood Pond, we'll come to this, it was under contract, which was scheduled to expire on 2018. It was extended to 2019, Mr. Speaker, further extended to 2020, and now we are in the completing stage of removing the remaining derelicts. Mr. Speaker, it is important to note that extensive work has been done also on Jocelyn Dyke, on Virgin Gorda, and in so doing, over the ensuing months, Mr. Speaker, we have cleared the site from Jocelyn Dyke. We've cleared the site in Anagada. We will be completing the site on Virgin Gorda. In terms of the derelict vehicles and scrap metal, Mr. Speaker, in 2018, 2 barges of scrap metal left this territory. The first barge had approximately 4,500 tons. The second barge, 4,000 tons. In 2019, there were 2 barges, one with 1,200 tons and the other with 2,500 tons. So far in 2021, we have transported 2,015 tons of scrap metal out of this territory. Mr. Speaker, it is critical to note, because we would have to, as indicated by the department, complete the cleaning of the sites on Tortola, ready this scrap metal for transportation, and have them delivered so that we can complete the process and hand over the site at Packwood Pond. Mr. Speaker, it is important to note again that we encourage all citizens that who currently house any derelict vehicles on any site to have these transported, as indicated, to Packwood Pond so that they can be processed and, Mr. Speaker, delivered from the territory. You will hear more, Mr. Speaker, on this initiative, and we look forward to this being completed. Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, in the second statement that I'll make, it deals with the COVID-19 situation report. Mr. Speaker, as you're aware, COVID-19 was declared a global pandemic on March 11, 2020, empowered by the Public Health Ordinance of 1977, the Infectious Disease Notification Act of 2013, the Quarantine Act of 2014, and the Public Health Control and Suppression Measures Order of 2020, the Health Emergency Operating Center was activated as the primary advisory body in the territory's defense against COVID-19. With the advice, decisions, and the actions of HEOC, the Cabinet of the Virgin Islands, the House of Assembly, and the efficient works of public, private, and voluntary institutions and individuals, as a territory, we followed the science. We enacted 11 public health COVID-19 control and suppression measures. We supported the enactment of 46 curfew orders. And on this note, Mr. Speaker, we were able to lift all land-based curfews, and we have a limited time, 2 to 5, as it relates to, 12:30 to 5, as it relates to activities on the ocean. We redesigned and commissioned a COVID-19 isolation ward on the 3rd floor of the Dr. D. Orlando Smith Hospital. We expanded the facilities and ensured the certification of laboratory services on-site for on-site COVID-19 testing in the territory, and to date have conducted 35,791 tests, of which 187 were positive, 182 cases have recovered, and 1 untimely death has occurred, and there exist presently 4 active cases. 1 case detected on entry, 2 cases detected on day 4 testing, and 1 case detected at post-quarantine testing. 2 of these cases are quarantined on vessels, while the other 2 are quarantined on Tortola. Important to note, Mr. Speaker, 3 of these cases are deemed asymptomatic, and 1 case deemed mildly symptomatic. We developed and commissioned COVID-19 permanent and mobile swapping stations at the Dr. D. Orlando Smith Hospital, at the Terrence B. Lettsome International Airport, at the newly opened Rowtown Ferry Terminal, and at various interim locations throughout the Virgin Islands. Mr. Speaker, we approved and funded quarantine accommodations, transportations, and meals free of cost to qualified individuals from June 1st, 2020 to February 28, 2021. And we proactively contracted in August of 2020 with the COVAX Consortium for the provisions of vaccines when they become available. Notifications of the delivery of 12,000 doses have been received, and receipt of these will be finalized when appropriate. To date, Mr. Speaker, the Virgin Islands received 12,000 doses of AstraZeneca vaccine, complements of the United Kingdom, and 2,000 doses, complements of the government of Dominica. It is confirmed that all vaccines required to be administered to everyone in the population desirous of being vaccinated will be supplied as a gift from the United Kingdom, coupled with the vaccines to be received through our proactive measures with COVAX that was initiated, as mentioned, during August of 2020 to provide an additional 12,000 units if required. A rollout of vaccines began in a phased manner, starting with the healthcare and frontline workers in phase 1, followed by elderly and those with chronic diseases in phase 2, beginning the week of February 11th. During the week of February 21st, phase 3 included all essential workers and was completed for those who voluntarily accepted. The vaccine rollout, Mr. Speaker, was structured to utilize community vaccination centers at the R&R Malone Complex in Parkwood Pond, the Nurse Teresa Smith Blyden Capoons Bay Clinic, the Seventh-day Adventist Youth Center at Carrot Bay, the St. William's Catholic Church Hall in Rowtown, East End Seventh-day Adventist Church in Fat Oaks Bay, the King Garden Bay Baptist Church on Tortola, all these on Tortola, and on Virgin Gorda, the Nurse Iris O'Neill Clinic and the North Sound Clinics, together with clinics on Jocelyn Dyke and Anagata. Mr. Speaker, the Community Awareness Subcommittee, spearheaded by Ms. Zoe Walcott and Dr. Dawson, Carl Dawson, are empowered and have commenced a number of educational and community-based vaccination pop-up sites. These initiatives are a specific and determined attempt to vaccinate all qualified individuals from ages 18 and above. Mr. Speaker, using this community vaccination approach, as of April 14th, we have completed 9,152 first dose vaccinations, 7,790 on Tortola, 1,190 on Virgin Gorda, 94 on Anagata, 74 on Jocelyn Dyke. To date, a number of memorandum of understandings have been executed with local doctors. Dr. Hesketh Vanderpool, on behalf of Bougainvillea Clinic, Private Hospital, and Eureka Medical Clinic. Dr. Ronald Georges, on behalf of VI Medical Clinic, and Dr. Mitchell and Mrs. Faye Penn of Penn Medical Center. The above private healthcare providers have agreed to conduct vaccinations at no administrative or product cost to their clients or to the National Health Insurance Program. Now that we have secured several paths on the way forward, it is predicted, it is envisaged, it is hoped that the rate of vaccinations would significantly increase. As far as possible, the government will accommodate all persons who want or wishes to be vaccinated. With 34,000 doses donated to the BVI government, Mr. Speaker, and made available to all qualified persons in the BVI, it is possible to vaccinate over 17,000 persons. As mentioned, 9,152 persons have presently been vaccinated. All attempts will be made to encourage a further 7,848 persons to voluntarily present themselves for vaccination. Vaccination, Mr. Speaker, is an important tool for us and the world as we do our part to combat the COVID-19 pandemic here in the Virgin Islands and globally. If we vaccinate sufficient number of persons within our population, not only will we be protected, but we will begin to break the chain of transmission. The government of the Virgin Islands have done our part. Mr. Speaker, I had mentioned earlier all of the investments made in the hospitals throughout the community. And yesterday, as mentioned, we reopened the Rotang Ferry facility. The Minister of Education have indicated the provisions made for schools. Mr. Speaker, our economy has to be improved, with all mentioned by the Premier earlier. It is critical that the remaining 7,000 persons present themselves so that we can reopen our borders. With BVI Love, we indicate that we shall not procrastinate any further. We must do our part, vaccinate. I take this time to further echo my mantra of the past 13 months with regard to COVID-19. We are not out of the woods. We are almost there. Mr. Speaker, vigilance is the key word. We impart all residents to do your part. We must, however, continue to adhere to all of the measures of social distancing, hand hygiene, and public health measures which are in place. As more of us get vaccinated here in the Virgin Islands and in the wider global community, we can begin to look at how this will impact our entry requirements and begin to reopen our borders and our economy and further restore our lives and our livelihoods. Mr. Speaker, it will be important for us, our families, and humanity, but most important, for the BVI that we love. I cannot and will not close without giving a plug to the Complete Health Improvement Program, CHIP. This has been proven as an excellent defense against any virus in attaining a healthy body. CHIP, Mr. Speaker, is a sound alternative. Thank you, and may God continue to bless you, Mr. Speaker, and these beautiful Virgin Islands. I thank you.
I thank the Minister for Health for his statements. I also, before I call upon the clerk to acknowledge honorable members wearing black today in respect to the passing of Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. I recognize the member for the 4th District, the Honorable Mark Vanterpool.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just thought on that same note, on a point probably of information or order that we could have been given a little chance to say a word or two on behalf of the passing of the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip. I would have certainly liked to say a word or two as I met him in 1993, but I hope we can do that, Mr. Speaker, at some point during this sitting. Thank you.
Okay, usually that is a matter under other business. So because we will be adjourning, recessing after item number 6, I don't think we'll have the time for that, but I'm guided by both the Premier and the Leader of the Opposition on that request. Honourable Member for the 3rd District. Okay, we can't hear you. Both the mics seem not to be working.
You can't hear me and you can't see me either because I got a mask. Mr. Speaker, I raise on a point of order on that same note as my honorable colleague from the 4th District. I think that on an occasion such as this, it is only fitting that members who wish to offer some form of condolence and acknowledgement on the passing of the Duke be allowed to do that. And I know that we are going to be recessing after item 6 on the order of the day. But for us to do that on the other business, which would be sometime only God knows when, would be a little out of step with what's happening at this particular time. So I would crave your indulgence in that of the Premier, Mr. Speaker, for such understanding be extended to us and the territory as a whole, as a matter of fact.
Well, again, unless we make amendment to the order of today, I don't see where that could happen unless we reach the end of the program. But again, I'm guided by both the Premier and the Leader of the Opposition on how they wish to proceed on that request. Honorable Premier. Okay. Okay. After we reach to item number 6, perhaps we'll amend the order paper to make that an item. I call upon the clerk.
Item number 5, presentation of papers.
I call upon the Honorable Premier and Minister of Finance to lay his documents on the table.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to lay on the table of this Honorable House the following documents. 1. Statutory Instrument 2021, number 33, a proclamation by the Governor under Section 83, subsection 1 of the Virgin Islands Constitutional Order 2017 UKSI 2007, number 1678, appointing the time and place at which the 7th sitting of the 3rd session of the 4th House of Assembly of the Virgin Islands shall be held. 2. Statutory Instrument 2021, number 28, Financial Services Limited Partnership Fees, Amendment Regulations 2021. 3. Statutory Instrument 2021, number 29, BVI Business Companies Amendment of Schedule 1, Order 2021. 4. British Virgin Islands Electricity Corporation Annual Report 2016. 5. British Virgin Islands Electricity Corporation Annual Report 2017. 6. Government of the Virgin Islands Ministerial Code of Conduct. And Mr. Speaker, I would just like to say with that Ministerial Code of Conduct, I have to hold 1 minute and say that I do thank the former Minister of Health and the former Deputy Premier, Honorable Ronnie Skelton and his whole team, for Honorable Dancia Pence, Honorable Irene Penn O'Neill, and former PSs, and Honorable Member for the 4th District, and Honorable Minister for Natural Resources and Labor, even Honorable Ralph Gonzalez, Honorable Mr. Meade, Ruben Meade from former Premier in Montserrat, and a plethora of other persons, Honorable Lloyd Black, and a series of them, for getting together to show that we can act as a mature territory and put together a full document, which is the ministerial code that will govern the conduct of ministers. And, you know, we brought it to this honorable house so all can see, because you never know when persons will be a minister, so that we all can have a hand in it. So I want to state clearly that my gratitude is the only currency that I can pay all those members that were on with, and I do thank them for this ministerial code of conduct. We promise as a government to bring it to the people, and we have done so now. So thank you so much. I'm glad that the member for the 4th was here on the button to be able to get my congratulatory in person. Thank you, sir, and Minister of Health, and all the others. We also want to lay on the table the International Tax Authority Annual Report 2019, the Virgin Islands Recovery and Development Agency Annual Report 2019, number 9, Virgin Islands Recovery and Development Agency Audited Financial Statements for the year ending December 31st, 2019, number 10, Statutory Instrument 2021, number 21, Imposition of a Curfew Order, number 5, Order 2021, number 11, Statutory Instrument 2021, number 22, Imposition of a Curfew, number 5, Amendment Order 2021, number 12, Statutory Instrument 2021, number 25, Imposition of a Curfew Order, number 6, Order 2021. Mr. Speaker, I move that all these be laid on the table of the House, and ironically, Mr. Speaker, in some quarters they're blaming us for doing too much work, but we'll continue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I thank you, Premier. Honourable members, pursuant to the Curfew Act of 2017, Section 3(2), the floor is now open for debate on the instruments number 22, 21, and 25. With no member wishing to debate, I call upon the Minister for Natural Resources, Labour and Immigration to lay his documents on the table.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to lay on the table the following documents. 1, Statutory Instrument 2021, number 24, Immigration and Passport, Prohibition of Entry, number 2, Order 2021. Number 2, Labour Department Annual Report 2018. Number 3, Department of Labour and Workforce Development Annual Report 2019. And 4, Social Security Board 12th Actual Review of the Virgin Islands Social Security Fund as of December 31st, 2015. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I thank the Minister. I now call upon the Minister for Health and Social Development to lay his documents on the table.
Rise to lay on the table the following document. Statutory Instrument 2021, number 26, Public Health, COVID-19 Control and Suppression Measures, Order 2021. Thank you.
There's another one. Honourable Minister, I'm seeing another instrument, 32.
Well, maybe I didn't get the amended. See if we can bring it down. I beg your humble apologies, Mr. Speaker. There's a second document, Statutory Instrument 2021, number 32, Public Health COVID-19 Control and Suppression Measures, number 2, Order 2021. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I call upon the clerk.
Item number 6, notices of motions given orally.
I call upon the Honourable Premier and Minister of Finance to give notice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, after this notice is when I'll amend the other paper, so I'll just go through this now, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to give notice at a later stage in the proceedings. I will seek leave to move the motion standing in my name under items 8, subsection 1, Roman numeral 1 through 13 on the order of the day.
Thank you. I call upon the Junior Minister for Tourism and Territorial Member to give notice. Okay, I don't have natural resources in my document. Okay, I've been handed an updated version. Therefore, I call upon the Honourable Minister for Natural Resources, Labour and Immigration to give notice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Speaker arrives to give notice that at a later stage of the proceedings, I will seek leave to move the motion standing in my name under items 8.1, Roman numeral 14, on the order of the day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. I call upon the Honourable Junior Minister for Tourism and Territorial Member to give notice.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to give notice that at a later stage in the proceedings, I would seek leave to ask the question standing in my name under item 7, Roman numeral 1 on the order of the day.
Thank you. I call upon the Honorable Leader of the Opposition and member for the 8th District to give notice.
Speaker, I rise to give notice that at a later stage in the proceedings, I would seek leave to ask a question standing in my name under item number 7, Roman numeral 2 through Roman numeral 6 on the order of the day. Speaker, while I'm on my feet, just raise a quick point of information. Speaker, in terms of the order of asking questions, in terms of order of precedent, I see that the junior minister is going before me as leader of opposition, but based on the protocol of precedence, the leader of opposition should go before. Based on the same precedence, Mr. Speaker, that you shared with the Honorable House just recently, where leader opposition, the position of leader opposition stands at number 11, deputy speaker is number 12, and the junior ministers is order of precedence number 13. So just in terms, it might be an oversight, so I'm asking that we make the necessary adjustments in terms of order of precedence.
The order of precedence that I share with you came from the protocol officer at the Premier's office, and I was also clear that the Speaker has his own protocol within the House of Assembly. Nevertheless, I will consult on this matter and revert. Thank you. I call now upon the Honourable Member for the 2nd District to give notice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to give notice that at a later stage in this proceedings, I would seek leave to ask a question standing in my name under item 7 through 11, on the order of the day.
Thank you. I have been advised that there is no need for us to amend the order of today, and members wishing to make a short contribution on the passing of Prince Philip, they may do so. I want to ask that we impose a time limit of 5 to 7 minutes. At this time, I open the floor for those who wish to make contributions. I recognize the Honorable Mark H. Vanterpool, member for the 4th District.
Mr. Speaker, I do appreciate the opportunity, especially having had a request from 2 of the 3 senior statesmen in the House, including the Premier and the member for the 3rd, and supported by all members, I'm sure. Mr. Speaker, the timing is important. That's why I jumped up so quickly, because I believe if you have to wait till next week when we reconvene, the Prince, Duke of Edinburgh, the Prince would have been buried on Saturday. I believe, Mr. Speaker, it's important for us to note this because we are as a territory, a part of the monarchy. We are ruled under the monarchy, of which His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, has been a part of the family for a very, very long time and has made his contributions in whatever way, Mr. Speaker. And we also, through the parliamentary, what do you call it, the Parliamentary Association, which has been always supported by Her Majesty the Queen for former and present territories of the United Kingdom, where we on a regular basis go to attend these meetings and support and enjoys some of the parliamentary training from the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association in the United Kingdom. And from time to time, Mr. Speaker, we have visits from Commonwealth parliamentary members, both in the UK and from all over the world. I myself was privileged to have attended such a meeting in Namibia in Africa some years back, for those who are too young to know. So I am here today to pay respects to our for the passing of His Royal Highness Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, and wanted to just make a few comments, Mr. Speaker. Sometimes people, Mr. Speaker, people misunderstand us when we get up and say that we would like to be able to have self-determination for ourselves as a territory. People tend to misunderstand us to think that we are disrespecting our monarchy and are not a part of it. But we do respect protocols, and we do respect our position as we are now constitutionally, and respect the fact that Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II is a monarch, and her husband has passed away, and today we mourn his loss and express condolences to him, to his family, to the royal family, and the rest of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth, as we are a part of. Mr. Speaker, in a personal way, I was privileged to meet Prince Philip in 1993, I think it was, when he visited the territory and his Royal Yacht Britannia docked in Port Purcell. 93, right? Yeah. And we were able to join him in cocktails one evening while he took a vacation break here in the best part of the world, the British Virgin Islands. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, as I told the President Governor this week when I went to sign the Book of Condolences, that it was a privilege for us, our company, One Mart, K-Marks Foods, and we put all kind of big posters on the boxes as we were able to provision Her Majesty Yacht Britannia when they were here with Prince Philip. So I got to find those pictures somewhere for posterity, so that Honorable Fraser will see them. But we were privileged as a company to have done that. We were able to take care of the provisions while they were here. But the important thing is that we were able to meet His Royal Highness Prince Philip. We always saw him. I believe I was a little boy in primary school in 1960 or 61? 66, sorry. When, yes, 66, when the visit was made by Her Majesty to our little territory. And I was probably a little older when she returned 10 or 12 years later. But these are protocols, Mr. Speaker, that we must, while we have our intentions and wishes to upgrade our constitution and become self-determined, we must know that this is a protocol that can happen whether or not so, that we can always remain a part of the monarchy, as many other countries in the Caribbean who are independent already are part of the monarchy, and including Canada, in fact, I believe is still part of a Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. And consider Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth to be their monarch, and therefore we want to continue doing so. One might have their own opinions, sometimes including myself, as to whether in this day and age the importance or the cost and the relevance of such a monarchy is there versus what can be supported otherwise for those who may be suffering and so on. That might be person's opinions, but the fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, that we do have a monarchy and we want to pay respects in that regard. And that is important for me to speak up about today, Mr. Speaker. And I want to encourage that because we want to encourage our children and everyone to have such respect. So, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of my constituency and the entire Virgin Islands, as I wrote in the condolences book, and of my family, we express condolences to the royal family through the governor here, and we express condolences to the United Kingdom family and indeed the Commonwealth as a whole on behalf of the passing of His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh. I tried to get his award many years ago when I was, I think, 15 or 16, Honorable AG, when it was called the Duke of Edinburgh Award Scheme. And Honorable Vincent, our former 4th District Representative Vincent Scatliff and myself spent a night or two, I think it was a night up in Mount Sage in the cold weather under a little tent when it rained on us, trying to complete the requirements to get that award. We did walk 15 or 20 miles, then camped up there, we did some other things. I don't think I finished it. Maybe Dr. Scatliff did. But it was things like those that His Royal Highness encouraged. It was foundations like those and activities like those that he encouraged, and I was a part of it one time. If I didn't complete it, I'd probably need to complete it before. It's for young people, but I'm still young enough to complete the Duke of Edinburgh Award Scheme. But Mr. Speaker, with those words, I want to just express my condolences and thank you for the privilege of doing so in this timely manner. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Fanjapru. I recognize the representative for the 3rd District and senior member of the House, the Honorable Julian Fraser.
Mr. Speaker, I know your conscience would have bothered you if you had let me go home with my nice black suit today without being able to make this little contribution. Mr. Speaker, you have to appreciate that someone like myself who has a history with people like the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip. On Saturday, I attended the 21-gun salute at Queen Elizabeth Park, and someone commented to me that they didn't expect to see me there. So my response was that I have an affinity for the Duke and the Queen Elizabeth, if for no other reason than my age, and have been around for as long as they have. I can recall, Mr. Speaker, people are familiar with the Sikh Methodist Church and the cemetery next door, but my aunt lived past the Clarence Thomas going up in that area. And back in the days, it was just a track road with date fence on either side, and you're walking through that to come from up in that area to get down to where the well is right now, past the cemetery. But my mom left me there with my aunt for the day while she went to the coronation of the Queen. So back in 53, I think it was. I was only 3 years old. And I didn't kind of like it up there. I wanted to come down. So I bus off from up by my aunt and came down all the way down by the well, went up by another aunt, Rufet Fab's mother. And when my mother came home, she was looking for me. They couldn't find me. They didn't know where I was. This little 3-year-old boy bus off and he gone about his business. My aunt was old, so she didn't know that I left. And it was from back in those days when the Queen got coronated back in '53. And we grew up in the days when you go and you sing the national anthem, God Save Our Gracious Queen, and you stand at attention. We grew up in the age when Commonwealth Day was a big thing. It was Empire Day back then. It was a big thing. And the older kids would get to go to Road Town on that day, where they have sports day. And the younger ones, like myself, would wait around till my turn came. But we'll go there and we'll get Kool-Aid and all those things. And you cannot forget those days and what the significance of the monarchy meant to us as a territory. And in 1966, when the Queen came for the first time to the territory, I was old enough then. I was in high school, secondary school at the time, and I can recall them driving in this convertible. First hit the island. When it came to the island, the government kind of seized it, so that they were holding it for when the Queen came. It was a privately owned vehicle, belonged to All Bruley, and we gravitate towards those kind of things. So when, as a member for the Fourth mentioned something about self-determination, when talk of that come up, I don't apologize for it, Mr. Speaker, because I think that most people in the territory are family people, they're oriented. They all have children, or they were children at one point. And as a child grows up, it either decides to leave the home or you push it out. But at some point, a child must grow up, and the parent becomes proud of that child when it grows up and take on its own form of independence. So I don't apologize for us seeking self-determination, and I don't think that the monarchy minds one bit. I think they'll be proud of us to see that we, at one point, who had been dependent upon them, will now have now gotten to the point where we are independent. And yes, member for the Fourth, Canada is a part of the monarchy, so is Australia and New Zealand, and it's nothing to do with independence. If you wish to hold on to the monarchy, you can, and I'm sure you'll be welcome to do so. Mr. Speaker, on this note, I think that the Prince, the Duke was 99, and anyone who lives to be at the ripe old of 99, I think it is expected at that point that life will come to an end, and I'm sure they were prepared for it. I wish the family, the surviving members of the family, well as they go through this time of mourning. I did get an invitation to come to the Government House to sign the register. Unfortunately, I didn't make it, but all my intentions are well and well-meaning. Yes, when the Duke came back in '93, I was there. He was at the college when it was dedicated, and we all loyal to the Crown, and never mind our request or our determination. We are loyal to the Crown, and we wish the Queen and her family all the best. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I thank the Honorable Julian Fraser. I recognize the Minister for Natural Resources, Labor and Immigration, and member for the 9th District, the Honorable Vincent O. Whitley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to say a few words. I too want to bring condolences on behalf of the 9th District, Enigada and Virgin Gorda, on the passing of Prince Philip. Unlike my older colleagues, I have never met him, but I've heard many stories surrounding his visits to these islands, and I've always found the stories very, very interesting. As a matter of fact, I think all royal visits here did do us well. Not of what they themselves did, but the influence they had to make things happen here. For the younger ones, when they first came in '66, there was no real road connecting West End and Road Town. To get to West End, you had to go to Parkwood Pond up over the hill. That road was built for that very visit for the Queen in '66. So when she came to West End, she could drive into Road Town without having to go up through the mountain or anything. At that time, we had very few vehicles here on this island. And they actually commandeered a private vehicle, a man, Bob Dennison's vehicle. And they kind of copped Joe Williams and trained him for about a week or 2 weeks to be able to drive the Queen and Prince Philip, because you have to follow protocols when you're dealing with that category of person. So he got an incredible education in how to drive a royal person. And Bob Dennison got the accolades for having used his car. It was a brand new car. Came from St. Thomas. I think it came around February, but the car came here probably in December. He was never allowed to drive the car before the Queen drove in it. His own car. They commandeered his car, kept it. He had to practice a few days a week to drive the Queen in that car. Then he got out afterwards. During the second visit, '77, apart from, well, the Queen was in Virgin Islands in '66 at Little Licks Bay. It was newly opened, so that was a good thing for Little Licks Bay. It attracted other prominent persons to the hotel, seeing the Queen had been there. In '77, when they came back, if memory serves me right, I think they dedicated People's Hospital, the new expansion there, of People's at that time. And during that trip, they actually went to Virgin Islands and visited the school. Of course, you know, when you're having a royal visit, the place is spotless. Every little patch hole in the road is fixed, every tree cut, everything else looks nice. So the country benefits from the things we do when these persons visit the territory. I remember, I think it was 2013, we had the Duke of Gloucester here, and he wanted to go to Salt Island. And the dock had been destroyed for a very long time. But the then Rep. Honorable Vanderpool made sure Salt Island had an excellent dock built over there. So these visits do have spin-off effects for the territory. Also, all those trees in the countryside were nice and cleaned up. So when they drive through, the place looked nice and fresh and light. When they came back in '93, that was when the college now had its turn. And I think that's when they visited the college and did some kind of dedication at that point in time. And of course, we did all those things all over again. The BVI got a quick facelift because we want to give our first impression, a good impression to these persons. So, Mr. Speaker, I just want to bring condolences on behalf of the 9th District to the royal family. Yes, he was a ripe old age, but if you look at the comments being made about the kind of person he was, I call him the wind beneath the Queen's wing. He was a significant support to her as she carried out her duties in her reign. Mr. Speaker, with those few words, I thank you.
I thank the member for the 9th District.
I now know why the Minister for Natural Resources and Labor is saying that that vehicle belonged to Bob Dennison. And I was trying to figure out who's Bob Dennison, the guy from Smuggler's Cove. The vehicle actually belonged to Earl Bruley. He would have ended up with it. When you saw it, you would have seen the vehicle with him, but it belonged to Earl Bruley. If you would recall, there was something happened recently, and his wife was presented with a plaque or something regarding that vehicle that was his.
Okay, we thank you for that clarification and the historical perspective. I recognize the Minister for Transportation, Works and Utilities and member for the 5th District, the Honorable Kai M. Reimer.
Mr. Speaker, I say thank you. I thank you for this opportunity for being able to extend my condolences to the royal family on behalf of my family, on behalf of the people of the 5th District as well. And I acknowledge the member from the 4th for actually bringing this forth so we could give our words of condolences as everything is timely. And I remember when I sat in cabinet last year, October, and the protocols came forth for what should take place for the passing of the Duke and for the Queen. I remember asking the chairman, I said, what was the reason for this? But, it's all in preparation for when these events take place. And here we are today. Those protocols were passed where we spoke about the moment of silence, the days of mourning, and so forth. And those were actually passed in cabinet as we got prepared. And Mr. Speaker, I have no recollection of the visits. I remember I'm hearing the last visit for Prince Philip was in 1993. And at that time, I was just graduating from high school. And I vaguely remember, but after doing some research, I understand, and as the member just mentioned, the impacts to the territory. Well, Mr. Speaker, what I like about Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth is the love story between them both. And as they've been married for 73 years, that is something that is very close to me because my grandparents, before the passing of my grandmother, they were married for 76 years. And I could imagine how that happened, and we understand the support that Prince Philip gave to Queen Elizabeth. So, Mr. Speaker, I know that they have a 5-year difference in age, and after doing some research, I saw that it was in 1939. She was just at the age of 13 when she admired Prince Philip for his athleticism. I think that's what it was. He liked how he jumped over the tennis court, the net, and that transpired into a lifelong relationship. And I could imagine what she is going through with the passing of her husband, because I see it with my grandfather, who speaks every time you have a conversation, he speaks of Mama, his wife, and how much he misses her. So I could imagine what she is going through. And Mr. Speaker, again, I just want to wish her well as she continue on in life and the family, and acknowledge the passing yet again. So, Mr. Speaker, with those few words, I just want to, again, offer my sincere condolences to the royal family on the passing of Prince Philip. Thank you.
I thank the member for the 5th District. I recognize the Junior Minister for Trade and Economic Development and Territorial Member, the Honorable Shireen D. Flax Charles.
Mr. Speaker, I too rise to extend my deepest condolences to the royal family on the passing of Prince Philip. I too recalled the Prince and the Queen visiting Virgin Gorda. I was not present, however, my mom and dad were. And one of our most treasured pictures that the family has is pictures of my mother and father greeting the Queen and Prince Philip. I too want to speak of how much I've admired the relationship between the Queen and Prince Philip. They exemplified what a great marriage is. And my husband often comments when persons say, we always see the two of you together, and he always will tell them, I always take my sand to the beach. And that is what Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth did. They always took their sand to the beach. And so I know that it must be a very difficult time now, as when you lose a loved one and someone that you've been together with for so many years as they have. it is a very difficult feeling, Mr. Speaker, but women are very strong, and I know that the Queen will, with the support of the rest of her family, be able to remember all of the great memories that she and Prince Philip had. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and again, on behalf of my family, we extend our deepest condolences to the royal family. And I just wanted to say, Mr. Speaker, royalty is something that sells. The Minister for Natural Resources alluded to it. Americans love royalty, and in the business that my husband is in, anything with a British flag is a top seller. So there are some great attributes to being affiliated with the British. So again, Mr. Speaker, thank you for those few words, and I extend deepest condolences once again. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I thank the Honorable Flex Charles. I recognize the Deputy Speaker and Territorial Member, the Honorable Neville A. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to give my condolences to the Queen and the royal family and the passing of Prince Philip. Mr. Speaker, in times like these winters, you need family around you and you need to look up to God. And I would like to say to the Queen that may God continue to bless you and keep you in His prayers. Thank you.
Deputy Speaker, I now recognize the member for the 2nd District, the Honorable Melvin M. Turnbull.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I too rise and give an acknowledgement to one of the most senior members of the House, Honorable Vanderpool, and recognizing you as well for giving us this opportunity to say a few words as it relates to the passing of Prince Philip and the royal family, to extend our condolences. So, Mr. Speaker, I stand as representative of the 2nd District on behalf of my family and the people of the 2nd District, especially the seniors and those who would have the memories and share the memories, like Honorable Vanderpool and Honorable Fraser, my parents and those who are in and around that age and older, that I think value the Queen's visit and the Prince's visit. I remember the Salt Island, but I know, just to correct the Honorable Minister for Natural Resources and Labor, I had a privilege of going to Salt Island. The dock was already built, so there wasn't a new dock built, and then we exchanged salt for the then Duke to come and take back to the Queen as a present from us here in this territory. So, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of my family, the people of the 2nd District, I extend my condolences. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank the member for the 2nd District. Is there any other member wishing to speak? I recognize the Deputy Premier and Minister for Education, Culture, Youth Affairs, Fisheries and Agriculture, and member for the 7th District, Dr. the Honorable Natalia D. Whitley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to offer my sincere condolences to Her Royal Majesty the Queen, Queen Elizabeth II, and the entire royal family, the people of the United Kingdom, the people of the Commonwealth, and beyond, Mr. Speaker. I'm often very passionate about subjects like self-determination, but that should never be confused, Mr. Speaker, for a lack of respect for the royal family and the people of the United Kingdom. It's just as a consequence of evolution that all people must be ready to step into. But I certainly appreciate and respect the royal family for the good they have done in the world. I would say that I have been a recipient directly of some of the programs that specifically His Royal Highness Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, has implemented in the world. In 1956, he started a leadership conference that invited about 300 persons from around the Commonwealth. I believe it must have been into the United Kingdom, I could be wrong. But he had this conference in 1956 bringing potential leaders together from around the Commonwealth. And out of that developed an organization by the name of the Commonwealth Leaders Dialogue in Canada. The Commonwealth Leaders Dialogue in Canada. And they further expanded that program to include persons from the Caribbean. So I was privileged to be able to participate in, I believe this was the first one of its kind, in 2011, the Caribbean Canada Emerging Leaders Dialogue. And it was for persons who had either were in positions of leadership or who had potential for leadership in the societies, seeking to expose these leaders so that when they were in positions of leadership, their decision-making could be enriched. And I had a phenomenal experience as a part of that conference, and following in her father's footsteps, Her Royal Majesty, the Princess Royal, Princess Anne, is the president of that conference and one of the main patrons of that conference. I was able to travel to Canada, specifically to Ottawa and also to Montreal. And I was also able to travel to the Dominican Republic as a part of a tour to expose all of us to private sector, public sector, civic organizations, all aspects of society to help to enrich your leadership skills. And other groups went to other places, other parts of Canada, and also to other parts of the Caribbean. And it all ended in Barbados, where we met Princess Anne and had good discussions with Princess Anne. So this group of conferences and study tours would have impacted the lives of thousands of persons, and even more if you look at all of the persons in the program who became leaders in the society. So in that way, it would have impacted many thousands, perhaps even millions of lives. And programs such as these, I would like to see us really continue. I was able to benefit from the program, but a number of other persons here in the Virgin Islands were able to benefit as well. And I see with programs such as these, we see increased potential here in the BVI, the overseas territories, for a partnership with the United Kingdom. I would like to see more of it, actually, more exposure of persons here in the Virgin Islands to what's happening in the United Kingdom, the opportunities to develop leadership skills, to be exposed to different aspects of a developed society. And I think that we should endeavor to do this in keeping with the example set by the Duke of Edinburgh. And so, Mr. Speaker, with those few words, I just want to really reiterate my condolence to the Queen and the royal family and the people of the United Kingdom and all others impacted by the passing of Prince Philip. And certainly we will do all within our power to ensure that the legacy he established with such programs, and of course his youth awards as well, described by the Honorable Member for the 4th District, that legacy continues to live on. And I'm so very grateful that I had the opportunity to benefit from those initiatives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy Premier. I recognize the Minister for Health and Social Development and a territorial member, the Honorable Corvin Malone.
Mr. Speaker, you'll be aware that I had made mention before, but as we will carry it in a segment, I would not mind repeating and giving my condolences to the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, and to give kind regards to the monarchy, to his family, as the entire Commonwealth mourn this great Gemini, 10th of June, 1921. I being the 12th of June, now I understand why the Queen's birthday is celebrated at the same time. So, Mr. Speaker, just suffice to say that Prince Philip carried his duties, he carried his commitment to marriage, commitment to the monarchy well, and when one look at the 99-year history as such, then we can only be proud. So I will say condolences, and I'm pleased to be able to extend such at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Territorial Member. At this time, I recognize the leader of, I recognize the Honorable Attorney General, Honorable Dawn J. Smith.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would join. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I am grateful to you for providing this opportunity in today's proceedings for us to be able to extend our condolences. I, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of myself and my families, and on behalf of the bar in the Virgin Islands, of which I am the titular head, I would like to express sincere and deep condolences to Her Majesty the Queen, to the royal family, to the British people, and of course to those all over the world who would be moved or who would have been moved by the passing of His Royal Highness Prince Philip. Mr. Speaker, in my days as the representative of the Virgin Islands in the United Kingdom, I would have had several occasions for which I'm grateful to attend at Buckingham Palace and other occasions where His Royal Highness would have been present. I also have immeasurable respect for Her Majesty the Queen, not only because she is the Queen, Mr. Speaker, but because of her example and her dedication to service, which I think we all agree is exemplary. When it comes to serving, she gets the job done. And I believe a lot of that would have been in great measure because of being able to depend and rely on His Royal Highness. So I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, I say I'm very sorry. I express my condolences. But as my colleagues have said, this is one moment in life that we can be sure of. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I thank the Madam Attorney General. I recognize the Leader of the Opposition and member of the 8th District, the Honorable Marlon A. Penn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank you for the opportunity to join my colleagues in giving condolences to the Duke of Edinburgh. Mr. Speaker, a former colleague in this House used to always say, member for the 7th, Dr. Pickering used to always say, seniority should come for something, and I want to thank the 2 senior members who stood up and ensured that this particular event happened at this time, because it's important and it was timely. So seniority does come for something. Mr. Speaker, I never had the privilege, like my honorable colleagues and senior members to my left, to have seen the Queen when she visited. I don't think me or many of my other colleagues in here were born during those times when the Queen visited initially and when the Duke was here. But the image of the monarchy and the Queen and what the Queen stands for is something that we all studied in school, looked up to, and an image that, as a member for the 2nd said, many seniors in this territory respect and honor. It's important for us to respect and honor protocols, respect and honor institutions, and institutions as we aspire to self-determination, aspire to more advancement as a territory. It's the institutions and our protocols that is going to keep us as a territory and as a nation. And I think it's fitting for us to recognize the monarchy, recognize the passing of the Duke of Edinburgh, His Royal Highness, Prince Philip. I too would like to express deep condolence on behalf of my family, the people of District 8, and the wider Virgin Islands, and my position as Leader of Opposition. Condolences to Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth, the people of the United Kingdom, the entire Commonwealth, and persons around the globe who mourn the passing of the Duke. May continue to rest in eternal peace, and may we continue to hold up the Queen in our prayers as you go through this very difficult time, and her family. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I thank the Leader of the Opposition, and finally, I call upon the Premier and Minister of Finance and member for the 1st District, the Honorable Andrew A. Foy.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to say these brief words. Mr. Speaker, no matter who you are in the world, no matter the stature of your family or yourself. No one ever comes to grip with dealing with the loss of a loved one. It is something, Mr. Speaker, that time somewhat heals the wounds, but never truly mends the broken heart, especially with the number of years that the Queen have been married to the Duke, and they're only human. So the people of the Virgin Islands, Mr. Speaker, do express their deepest condolences, Mr. Speaker, on the passing of Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. And I did say in my remarks, as we did do our condolences as a government, and the ministers right after cabinet, we actually last week paid our respect in a speech and also a video showing our gratitude for condolences and gratitude for being allowed to do so at the time, and our condolences to the family. So on behalf of the government and people of the Virgin Islands, I again wish to extend condolences to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, the royal family, the people of the United Kingdom, and the entire Commonwealth on the passing of His Royal Highness Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. And as a community with deep faith in God, we, the people of the Virgin Islands, pray for the eternal rest of Prince Philip's soul, and that the Almighty will comfort his loved ones in this their time of grief. And Mr. Speaker, I do thank all members of this honorable House for making this possible. And as the leader of government business, I too am glad that we all agreed to allow this to happen so that we can pay our last respects coming from this honorable House to the life and legacy of the Royal Highness Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, now deceased. Thank you.
I thank the Honorable Premier. At this time, honorable members, I'm going to recess the House until Tuesday, the 20th of April, 2021 at 10 a.m. This House now stands in recess.